games, brains, and a head-banging life here. You know what time of year it is? It is, of course, top list times. To go alongside our top 20 albums of the year, which is a written document that you can see on the website, pretty much the same time this video is going to go out as well as the top 10 EPs. But to go grander, because we have listened to a lot of music this year, and narrowing it down to 20 was very, very difficult. So we thought we'd expand on it in a video format, bit short and sharp, at least until we get into the 20s of our top 50 albums of the year, starting from 50, working our way down to number 1. I will say, based off our top 20, in our top 20, you do see similarities, but I think more than ever before, our top 10 is wildly different, particularly our top 3, quite different, you know? But that is the point, different tastes and so on. But I'd imagine a lot of what I either didn't get in my top 20, or likewise you with your top 20, has ended up in your top 50 regardless.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I think we always, like, as each year goes by, especially the more you kind of, you know, you do so much of the underground sort of stuff that I don't always get to, you know, so you will come across stuff there. Whereas this year has been a strange year for me, because I would say I probably listened to less music this year than I have in decades.
Yeah.
But that's purely because I became obsessed with a band partway through the year, and actually, you know, I was like, oh shit, I've got to do my 10 favorite tracks of 2020. Well, actually, all of them come from pre-2020 from the one band. But there you go, the joys of music.
Yeah, also, dude, he's mentioned as well, check out our top 10 tracks of the year. It's been beautifully cut together, I should say so myself. There's some funny little vignettes as well as snippets of the actual music from the tracks in question. So you get a nice 25-30 minute video there where we list the tracks in different locations and different situations, and a piece of the music as well. But we're on to top 50. So number 50 then. Do you want to get us started?
Yeah, okay. Right. So number 50 for me is Belphegor's album, Necrodemon Terror Sathan. Yeah, I like it a lot. Very heavy. Became a fan of the band really after Totem Ritual, even though I know they've been around for a little while by that point, but I was such a huge fan of Totem Ritual. When this came out, I was like, yep, got to check it out. And didn't like it anywhere near as much as Totem Ritual, but still enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the important thing with all of this. Like, number 50 in our list is still a highly regarded album. This isn't like, here's the worst of the year.
Absolutely. When we say 50, these albums were all still 9 out of 10s. Like, this is what it was. When I broke it down and took apart a document that I was scoring throughout the year, we went almost to 120, which had scored 9 out of 10 and above. So there's nothing below 9 out of 10 in this top 50, as far as I'm aware anyway. But my first one, my number 50 choice is 1823 by Ember. It was released on the 17th of July through New Heavy Sounds. I do want to read the story behind this album. I think it's very significant for it. It's a very special significance, that number. It's not just a numerical title. It has substance. As Eric Bigelow, the drummer, had been on the list for a kidney for 4 years. He actually received the kidney transplant in May of 2019, right in the middle of writing this album. The kidney was from a deceased donor, and all Eric and his and Crystal Bigelow, who's the singer, and his wife knew about the donors that was a young woman between the age of 18 and 23. So the album is dedicated to the donor and the surgeons of Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, it's a wonderful story. It's an incredible tribute, and it is an album that touches the heart and soul. Before you even get into the doomy and ethereal style of music that they have, it's incredible vocal performance by Crystal, but this is a very doom album. You've got that slow drawl with a very depressive sound to it. Very great album.
Doom.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a good part.
All right, my next then, number 49 on the list is the album Fracture from Bleed From Within, which came out back in May.
Yep.
Bit of metalcore, really, quite modern sounding, you know, but yeah, I'm all right with a bit of metalcore, and I think it's a really good album, really, really strong album. Liked it a lot when it came out. I still play it quite a bit today. I wouldn't, you know, I don't think there's anything in it that would make, like, you know, sort of jaw drop you, but it's just like a really, really strong all the way through, you know, happy to listen to it over and over again. So
yeah, I concur. I'll get more into it later on, as Bleed From Within are on this list somewhere else. number 49 for me is 10 Foot Wizards, Get Out of Your Mind, released via Beard of Zeus. Obviously, 10 Foot Wizards, stoner rock group that incorporate punk, metal, blues, funk, psychedelia. It's quite sleazy, can be quite sexy, can be quite fun, you know? They played the likes of Glastonbury, as well as our kind of festivals, the Bloodstocks and stuff like that. Actually, I'm not sure if they played Bloodstock. Don't quote me on that one. But yeah, big fan of 10 Foot Wizard. Up to this point, seen them live as well. And this album's got a ton of funky ass groove, ton of psych, ton of stoner rock fun. Yeah.
Top 50 stoner doom albums.
That's two already knowing it.
I haven't got one yet. And I don't at number 48 either. So we've got a bit of an old school thrash sound with Fee or Five by Havoc, which also came out in May.
Yeah.
Really good album, man. I've actually listened to a lot of like, I don't know, like a thrash / power this year. Has really been like a big thing for me, or I suppose it is for most years anyway. But yeah, the Colorado-based band. It's really good, really good thrash album. It's got a few nice little touches in it as well, so it's not all just 100% sort of balls to the wall stuff. There's like a track or two in it that have a bit more of a, I don't know, a grander sort of scale, a bit of clean singing, some melodies thrown in. So yeah, I thought it was good. It's nice to see bands that have been around for a little while still mixing it up,
Yeah, I really like the album too. We're going to be doing a lot of self-plugging in this, but if you want a bit more Havoc information, go check out the interview conducted with Havoc on this very YouTube channel. 48 for me, we are moving away from the stoner and doom to melodic metal with Ignia and the album The Realms of Fire and Death, released when was it released? I think it was released on the July 3rd via Cataclysm Music. Yeah, I love a bit of melodic metal. I actually don't listen to enough of it that I probably should, considering the state of great bands that come our way. I think often as well, when I see melodic metal albums, unless it's like something I picked up in the email, I'm kind of often assured that, well, Brendan will cover this, as he's often a bit more of a fan of the melodic metal style, particularly depending upon the country and so on. But with Ignia, it is exactly what you get. You get powerful melodic, symphonic metal, and it's high-powered stuff. It's stuff you can headbang to, but also kind of lifts the soul here and there. Yeah.
Cool. Album I really liked, actually, and this is one of the few here and there where I kind of kept putting it higher down the list, and then it kept getting itself pushed back down a little bit, and that is at number 47, A Romance with Violence by Wayfarer.
Okay.
Which is, it's black metal, kind of modern-ish sounding black metal though, and obviously this album in particular was a kind of concept album all around the notion of the Wild West, in the States.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a really good album. It's very thoughtful, it's well done, it's put together nicely. It's probably the sort of stuff that a black metal purist will be like, oh, that's not black metal, but it is. But yeah, it's also a topic that outside of power metal, and even there, it doesn't really get covered very much, does it? This whole kind of gunslinger style times. And it works quite well in the black metal scene, to be honest with you, because essentially it was just a shit ton of killing.
It is a subject when it does get covered if it's done right, because when you think of dusty sort of cowboy-esque area, I kind of would think, well, the right bands to do that are stoner and stuff like that, not necessarily black metal, but it is an intriguing idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I like Auden Ogan did it with I can't remember the name of the album now, but songs like Gunman. It might have actually been the name of the album, Gunman.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, you can picture the cover. Cool. So what are we, 47, yeah? 47.
Yeah.
Dismalamarance is the name of the band. It is Tome 1, released earlier this year, of course, by Transcending Records, June 26th to be exact. Dates are something we don't know off the top of our heads. It's black metal. It's cold, unforgiving black metal, but with a very modern touch, being an American band. It's expansive and thought-provoking stuff. What I love particularly about my style of black metal is the ones that take me on these journeys, you're telling me a tale. It's not so much that's a concept, but I get drawn into it. And I'm always going to lean. I now accept as well that as much as I love all styles of black metal, my ultimate overriding taste in black metal is atmospheric and that style. And this is what this basically is, atmospheric darkness done very fucking well. Yeah.
Cool. 46. Spirit Adrift, Enlightened in Eternity.
Cool.
Yeah, so this is recent enough, I suppose. It was October release.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a really good guitar-driven metal, to be honest with you, which is obviously, well, we all like guitar-driven music anyway, but you know, it's I guess it's almost showing off kind of guitar virtuoso stuff at times, which I really, really like. Well put together, nice kind of hard-hitting riffs, but you know, a lot of it is blazing lead guitar work, and you know, I loved it for that. I loved it still for that. So
it was 51 on my list.
was it? Ah.
51. And I generally considered moving one of the others out, but I thought in the end, no, I'd left it. But it was 51. My 46th favourite of the year, Suffer No Fools, is the name of the band. And the album is We Die As We Live. British melodic metalers. Yay, one for the Brits. Brand new album, We Die As Live, released on the 17th of April, so quite early on. Very DIY band from Hertfordshire. And it's one of those where it's like, it's clearly not going to set the melodic world on fire. That's fine. But that's not a problem when you do it so fucking well. And this is a proper one of those albums where it's like, oh, okay, you guys are making a play for the mainstream, so to speak. You're in the underground and you're seeing an opportunity, a little bit of a light, and you're going to take it. Even when we have like a total, we're not short on melodic metal bands around the world. And it's a very easy term, we play melodic metal. It catches across so fucking many. So to really stand out, you kind of need to do a bit more than this. And this has it all, you know, hard guitars, massive vocal hooks, lots of harmonizing, thick layer, consistent groove. Yeah, it's just a banging album.
Cool. My next one's one for the Germans. And this is The Ocean, or The Ocean Collective's Phanerozoic to Mesozoic Cenozoic.
A fucking title joke.
But yeah, so this is obviously the second part of a double header with Phanerozoic 1, and I can't remember the periods that were in that, but I think it came out maybe a year or 2 years ago. Very progressive music, not always easy to listen to, and an album that on first listen I was blown away by the talent and not quite clicked with the songs. And then on second and third and fourth listen, you kind of find yourself clicking more and more. Do you know what I mean? It becomes less, I guess, because it's less of a surprise, the sudden twists and turns and everything like that. So you're able to bed into it. And I mean, as far as the concept goes, it's an expansive idea, which is essentially bringing us all the way back from Jurassic periods, all the way through the different time periods up to the current geographical period. I think it's called a geological period, which is the Cenozoic period. You know, so it's essentially from pre-mankind all the way up to mankind. But musically, you know, this band are renowned for, I don't know what the word, expansiveness, I guess is probably a good one.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, you listen to it. I mean, the level of detail and attention that goes into one of their songs is mind blowing on its own. Without even, you know, you could review them 10 out of 10 just for effort. Never mind even when you actually get to the fact that the music's really good as well. So,
okay,
yeah, it's good stuff.
Cool. 45 then. Coincidentally, my next one also comes from Germany, but it's a melodic death metal band. Still on a melodic metal at the moment. It's Heaven Shall Burn, and the new album of Truth and Sacrifice, released on March 20th. Firstly, this is a concept album that's split into two halves, one of truth and one of sacrifice. And that's quite important because this is, and don't react, people, 19 tracks long. Now, and it's not grindcore, it's melodic death metal. So you do need some serious time and effort to really put your head in the right mind space for this. That is a problem, of course. But considering how it's split and how it's done across and how ultimately as well they're able to sustain what is constant carnage of death metal constantly throughout with razor sharp riffs, brilliant control savagery for the medium of the drums and the vocals. It's constantly brutalizing, but it's really fucking good. Yeah.
Cool. Number 44 then. This is a UK band, so from Liverpool, and this is the album Homecoming from Ashen Reach.
Oh, cool.
Came out only last month, I think, wasn't it? November sometime. I can't really remember now, to be honest.
No, I can't remember.
But yeah, but it's very good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's got a lot going for it. I think it probably would have normally, I would like to have seen it higher up the list, but it does kind of have this mix of like between hard rock and metal, you know, and I found myself enjoying it very, very much, but obviously naturally being more inclined towards when it got heavier.
Hmm.
And while I enjoyed it when it was in the more kind of rocky area, you know, I suppose that's why it ended up kind of further down the list. But like I said, this is still like top albums, not worst to best. But yeah, it's really, really good. And as you know, as a debut, it's exciting to see a local or localish UK band kind of growing to the sound that, to be honest with you, sounds like it could be on a bigger stage than where it is for a debut already, you know.
Yeah, I know the album well that you're talking about. I got confused momentarily and was thinking when you were talking about rock, and I was like, Ash and Crown, not rock, but it's Ash and Reach, two very different bands. And you're right, it came out like last month, and it is a proper. You're right, it's a proper like, oh, okay, this is your debut album, and it already sounds like you know where you want to be, like with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like music for caverns underneath a pub. It's got a bigger sound to it than that. You can see it on a stage, like a reasonable sized stage, you know, and people really getting into it. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing for a band and a debut as well. So
yeah, good luck to them. 44 for me, Blessed Black. We're going all the way back to the beginning of this year, 2020, to January 17th, where Beyond the Crimson Throne by Blessed Black was released. And hey, it's been a couple of albums since it's come up, but Doom and Stoner can never have enough of it, in my opinion. And the combination of the two done really, really well as we get here is just super, super exciting. And what we got here is traditional sound of Doom, but one that lays on the fuzz really thickly for that stoner teeth-aching sound you often get, sweet and choking at times too. And it's only 7 tracks. And it's not overtly long either, so it's kind of a nice little taster, really, of what these guys can do. Yeah, really liked it.
I've got a bit of Doom next. Well, no, I haven't really. Although I guess you've pretty much got a bit of everything on this album. So this is Ward 16's Metamorphosis. Second album, and there's a shitload going on in it, man. There really is. There is like you know, like pretty much every genre makes an appearance at some point.
Yeah.
But I think that just makes it really, really interesting, and it's still plenty heavy, and there's lots of like interesting stuff going on, and you've got like sort of gloomy melodic songs, you've got sad songs, you've got raging kind of like vicious ones, and yeah, I like it. I think I found it like quite I don't know, exhilarating to listen to. Not going from track to track and being like, oh, what are we going to get next?
Yeah, you can certainly say that about Ward 16, as they are a very imaginative band. Very imaginative what's going on there. Right, my number 43 then is one you know well, and it is Stargazers by Drops of Heart. Obviously, Russian melodic death metal band. Weirdly enough, right, this probably would have been a lot higher had this come like 2 months ago rather than when it did. And it actually, I kind of completely forgot about this album until you sent me over your lists. And I saw it then, I was like, oh my God, I forgot my album. Let me go back and look at it and go back and listen to it and so on. And it was like, oh, this is banging. Yeah. The fact that I was like, I've kind of just moved on from it. Maybe go, okay, get it in the top 50, but don't have it too high. It's a bang. It's about an hour long, isn't it? About an hour long.
Yeah, it's a very long album.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel that long, like you're constantly in it,
It's not a country naturally you naturally think of when you go to like the mellow death sort of area, but fucking I was impressed. As you know, it will come up further down the list.
It will. But yeah, for me, I just really enjoy the guitar work here. I love how they include very subtle and not overtly used synth, stuff like that. It's got a great vocal performance. It is a very solid melodic metal album. Yeah.
Russia making an appearance on our list.
Yeah, man, we're going worldwide.
So next to mine then, number 42, it's a big band that we'll all be very, very aware of, and that is Demons and Wizards with their album 3.
Cool.
Which that came out again a fair while back. That was February. I mean, everyone was excited about this album coming out. Of course, it's got Hansi in it, and other people too. But it's got Hansi in it. Yeah. But it's kind of weird. Like I would say that when it came out, it didn't live up to the hype I had for it.
Fair dues.
I liked it a lot, but I was so hyped for it that it was probably never going to hit that bar.
Yeah.
But what it has had for me is staying power, especially like probably 3 or 4 tracks on the album, which I'm pretty sure I'll have them on my list, like I don't know, that, you know, in a shuffle for eternity now.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's had a real staying power. So, yeah, I think it's a really, really good album. Nice mix between, you know, I think you said in your review for it, it's not like an Ice Earth album. It's not like a Blind Guardian album. It genuinely is those components nicely melded together and it works.
Yeah, well put, well put. I echo everything you're saying there.
You say well put to the bit that you said in your review.
I put it so well.
Well put.
I echo what you're saying as well in regards to staying power. It's not on my top 50, but I will say, and the reason why it's not on my top 50 is because I realized that I was only ever really took one song from it more than any other. I like others, but one song in particular, which is in my top 10 songs of the year, more than any other. And that was kind of like, well, that was a big sign for me, you know?
Yeah.
Right, my 42nd choice is New Jersey. We're in New Jersey now for Dystopia AD and Rise of the Merciless. And it is is this the first century we've had progressive / technical death metal? I don't think we've had one yet so far of that.
Not the technical side.
No.
The Ocean Collective on the progressive side, but
yeah. So, yeah, I think this deserves more reference to the technical side because it has that sound and you kind of know what that is. It's very sharp. It's very, not computerized, that's the wrong word. It's very industrial style guitar. It's really, really heavy, really, really roaring death metal style music, but with a complexity. A lot of grooves sometimes. Shit, this album even has a saxophone solo in it. That's the progressive side of this band. It is a classy album, though. Yeah.
That's cool. A bit of saxophone in metal.
Yeah, you can never. If it's done right, it can be bloody amazing.
Yeah. All right, so I do my first. I can't even remember. This might be my last, but my first proper Doom album.
Probably your last.
It's number 41. I don't know. There might be another one or two that sneaked in. This one is Reflections by Godthrim.
Oh, of course.
You know, so it is obviously Doom. You know, and it's very much on the dark and aggressive side of it, rather than the traditional. You know, kind of Doom sound, but yeah, it's a really, really, really good album, and it's I don't know, I don't really know what else to say about it. To be honest with you, I like it. It's great. It's heavy. It's quite dirty and filthy, and doesn't make you feel particularly good listening to it, but you know you appreciate it. So yeah.
The crazy thing about that album is that it already feels like it was years ago when that was released, because obviously how 2020's been, and it's way back in February. You know, around that time, we had a ton of fun with Godthrim as well. Go check out an interview we had with them at the beginning of the year as well. Massive fan of the band. Not going to say much more because they'll come up later on for me. Sticking with the Doom, but with a bit of sludge and a bit of blues, we are now going to the south of Italy on our worldwide trip for Lunar Swamp and their album, Undermud Blues. All one word as well, not like separated, Undermud Blues. By Fuzzy Crackling Presents, released at the beginning of March early this year. What I fucking love about this is how it incorporates the bluesy side of music. So it is, well, it's a Doom album. It proper leans into the swampy, bluesy psychedelia as well. And then throws in a little bit of touch of stoner as well for this really muddy sounding album that, honestly, it's one of those when you listen to, you can picture yourself on a boat drifting through a really thick swamp, you know, where you can hear the sound of insects buzzing and like the sun dapples through the trees and you got that smell of like a bog and stuff like that. This fucking album nails that, but it's got a really relaxing sound to it because of that fuzzy blue edge. Yeah, awesome.
Swamps everywhere. So number 40 on the list then, and that is the album Primeval, which is by Venom Prison. So that was an October release, 9th of October. It is a bit of a cheat, a little bit, I guess, from their perspective, because it has, I think, a good half of the album is re-recorded from an early release of theirs.
2 songs.
Oh, was it? Oh, there you go. Three quarters.
2 songs or 3 songs. I can't quite remember all the new stuff. Yeah, 2 songs. Yeah.
But, you know, it kind of worked well for me though, because I'm not familiar with the early EPs. That's the thing. Right. So for me, they were just like, oh, here's some new Venom Prison stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I really like it. You know, I'm a fan of the band anyway. They're obviously extremely aggressive. You know, some nice pure death metal, really. It was nice as well. There's a few like little things in this album, I guess, that will maybe show the band growing a little bit as well. You know, like it wasn't just, oh, here's 10 more, I'm just going to scream at you, 10 tracks, you know, but there's a little bit of clean melodies and stuff like that coming through. And, you know, just watching a band kind of evolving like that is always cool as fuck anyway. But even more so when they're, UK band, and also very, very heavy. And yeah, I don't know, I'm a fan of them. I don't know what it is about Venom Prison, but I want them to do well, even though I don't always love all of their releases. They're a band I like, and I just want to see them do well for some reason. There you go.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm obviously a big fan as well. This album is on my top 50, so I will add some points to it as well. One of the reason why I would suggest this album is deserving at least, maybe it would be my 52nd, is because of those 2 new tracks more than anything else. As you already said, there's some evolution on there, and there's some different sounds, and that's fascinating for a band that's been predominantly so focused on one thing. And once again, I have to say this, go check out the wicked interview with Ash Gray of that band, one of my favorite of the year. Go check that out if you want to hear a lot more thoughts about this album and where Venom Prison are going. And at the time was an accidental spoiler for what would be the cancelled tour or postponed tour that they'd end up having to do anyway. But there you go. Sticking with the big, though, we're going for number 40 for me, and it is from August Burns Red. It is Guardians, released on the 3rd of April. Now, I went into this coming off the back of falling in love with August Burns Red over their Christmas music. I'd always liked bits of the music, but I'd never really given a lot of albums. Then I found myself a big fan of the Christmas stuff, went back a little further, thought, yeah, this is a banging metalcore band. And I'm glad they're quite big and stuff like that. Went in with Guardians thinking, yeah, this will be a good album. It's not. It's a fucking great album. It's so very simple as well. It's not like they're doing anything particular spectacular in the sense that they're doing anything wildly different from what they do, but they're doing it so fucking well. It's no nonsense. It's heavy as balls metalcore groove that they're just so good at. And Guardians has so many great songs in it. I wanted to mention one in particular. Let me find the track where it is. Paramount. Yeah, Paramount. Go check out Paramount if you particularly want to hear an August Burns Red song from this album. Yeah, that's one of my favorite August Burns Red songs. Full stop now. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. A song that's not a Christmas song that's her favorite.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay, number 39 on the list. This came out in April this year, and this is Verminous by the Black Dahlia Murder.
Black Dahlia.
A band, you know, that I guess this is a tech entry, kind of technical death metal, maybe. But I guess as a band, you know, they've been around for quite a long time now. I think this was their 7th or 8th release. And one of the things I really like about the Black Dahlia Murder, again, even though I wasn't really a fan in like maybe the first 3 or 4 albums, I didn't really know a lot about them.
Yeah.
And I became a really, really big fan after the last album, which was Nightbringers. And then I kind of looked back a little bit and I was like, oh shit. And one of the great things about these guys is they're really consistent. You know, like similar to what you were just saying about August Burns Red. I don't think I listened to anything on Verminous that made me think like, wow, these guys are going to change the face of anything with this album.
Yeah.
But like, it's just so consistently good. Do you know what I mean? They're just, I think I read a comment somewhere and it was really summed up how I felt about this album and that. And it was like, the hardest thing in the world to do must be for the Black Dahlia Murder to put a set list out there, because your albums are so consistent, you're just going to constantly disappoint somebody. Yeah. It's not like most people, you go, well, we know we'll take the 3 from that one, the 3 from that. It's like, no, everybody's going to have completely different favorites across all of your albums because they're just consistent. So, and this is just another one, you know, it is what it is. It's blasty, brutal, it's gnarly, it's heavy, it's, you know, punchy, gives you a headache sometimes if you listen to it too loud. It's proper in your face, angry metal.
Yeah.
So yeah, good band they are.
It took me about a month after it had been released to finally get around to hearing it, because I just never found the time. And yeah, I echo everything you've said. Number 39 for me then, Akurian, Come Forth to Me, released via Redefining Darkness Records from Montreal. So we're all the way in Canada now for this one. Released April 10th, 2020. And it's one of those that has like a lot of big names in its ranks. Like, I didn't really know the names, but apparently they're kind of considered of their scene quite big names. So they kind of come together to effectively create a combined talented death metal record. And it is exactly that. It's one of those mentally draining, constant slabs of fucking fury, where there's nothing particularly overtly complex beyond some very strong guitar riffs, some solos here and there. And it's just huge. I think the bravest thing to do in this, there's certain tracks that come in, like there's 2 tracks to combined coming at over 20 minutes. And that's in death metal as well. And there's no like, 3 or 4 minutes of that is just made up of them dropping the tone and going doomy or whatever. It's not. It's consistent, absolute brutality. Yeah. So it's just one of those where it's super, super heavy, super, super fast. And sometimes I really like that.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you need. Something filthy and dirty and heavy that you don't have to think too much about. And I guess that's really where my number 38 comes in as well. And this is the album Dawn of the Damned by Necrophobic.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, a band that have obviously been around for a long, long time. In the underground, always going to be in the underground. You know, but I think that's where they want to be, and that's probably where they're best suited. Yeah, I mean, it is death, black and death, I guess. It's heavy, it's raw. It doesn't really have a lot of frills in it. They mix things up a little bit here and there on a couple of tracks, but for the most part, it is exactly what you would expect from, underground black and death metal. And yeah, as an album, I enjoy it quite a lot, and it is kind of one of those blow the cobwebs off sort of albums that I happily play without having to think too much or anything about it, and just kind of enjoy the darkness and the heaviness of it all.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, 38. One that you'll be more familiar with. It is Rush of Death by Almanac. 6th of March by Nuclear Blast. This one, I only really bothered with this one because I can't remember the context that we had a long talk about this particular album. And about
I think we were talking about Victor Smolsky and like how the impact he'd had on the world of metal without us not even knowing who the guy was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was pretty much it. So eventually I got around to hearing this. In fact, it was like 3 months ago that I actually listened to it. And the thing that kind of stood out for me, and it still stands out now, is simply put, is this is a mix of ideas. It's a hodgepodge of ideas, which could be seen as a negative. But from the fact you get like thrashier songs, you get power metal style stuff, bit of symphonic. There's rock.
Yeah, some just straight up traditional metal.
Yeah. And that variety across one album ended up being really kind of appealing, where I felt like each time I wanted to listen to it, I could just choose a particular track that either I hadn't given much time or I'd enjoyed and not feel like, I needed to carry on here and there. That might sound like a weird thing, you were happy that you could individualize it. But for me, it meant each individual track ended up standing out more because I was going, all right, let me listen to that one, go back to it again and stuff like that. But yeah, that mix of genres and the indelible talent the man does clearly have really kind of stuck on with me. Yeah, it's memorable, incredibly memorable.
Agreed. Again, another one that comes up later on for me.
Of course.
So 37 on my list. We're back in good old Blighty for I'm probably not going to say this one right. Negotium Crucis, which is the Infernal Seas album, which came out in August, September, something like that, via Apocalyptic Witchcraft. Obviously a band we like quite a lot anyway. We've seen them at Bloodstock, listen to them on record as well. They, it's not just a band that I enjoy live.
Yeah,
they're good. I'm a fan of their story, their concepts. How they kind of set themselves in and around UK and Europe and the things that happen in medieval kind of times and brutality and everything that happened in that time. It works really, really well for their style of music, to be fair. It's the perfect backdrop for it. And I think this is a really, really strong album. I actually, it's probably my favourite release of theirs so far. I think it's 100% definitely my favourite release of theirs so far. And I guess what I liked about it possibly the most was the fact that it, if you listen to their previous releases and this, it's another thing where you can kind of almost plot on a graph. Like you can see the improvement in, say, the sound quality, improvement in some of the ideas and the execution of it. So yeah, big fan of the band. And I think this is the best they've done so far. And based on the way, that kind of upward trajectory, can't wait to see where they go next.
Yeah, absolutely. Great fan of the band.
Yeah.
My number, what one number am I on? 37.
Yeah.
Sepulchre by the Sea. Conqueror Worm, released on the 6th of November. This is the debut, and it is an epic. 6 tracks spanning nearly an hour, crossing multiple genres, but ultimately based in post-black metal. So what you get here is a combination of beauty, gorgeous, melodies where it's richly detailed and warm at times, but then hits these black metal, darker, dirtier sounds. Vocals that are very demonic in style, and a lot more chaos that constantly switches between the two seamlessly across, like I said, almost a whole hour. This was a bit of got one where, you know, I'm sitting there open mouthed listening to a lot of what these guys did here as well. Even when it is, sometimes the tracks are just no nonsense black metal as well. But yeah, what they've combined and what they created was pretty stunning.
Cool. And this one, I debated about whether or not I would include in here, but I did in the end because I thought like actually it was the year for it. And it is true in terms of its positioning. And this is Empath Live Volume 1, Order of Magnitude, Devin Townsend, number 36 on my list. And I think the weird thing about this year, I think in any other year a live album probably wouldn't have made it to my list, but in a year where you know, the desperation for live music has like reached, you know, extremes. Live albums actually have been really fucking welcome this year. Really welcome. And this is a very good live album. You know, it's well recorded. There's all the things I love about a good live album. You know, crowd are there. You know, you get the talk. They haven't cut the talk in between tracks. You know, so it's not like they end the track and then they cut it. You get to hear Devin addressing the crowd, and to a little bit, you can kind of picture yourself there, and it takes away a little bit of the pain of not having been at a show for the best part of 10 years, as it feels right now. And yeah, you know, obviously a big fan of the Gut band anyway, big fan of Empath. And while there are a few variations to songs that I would maybe have preferred there not be.
I know the one you mean, yeah.
Yeah, Spirits Will Collide. It's still a very nice version of it. But yeah, it is strange. It's like, I guess I've listened to a fair few live albums this year. There's been a fair few released, and EPs as well, actually. And they've been very welcome. And this is one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Normal circumstances, putting a live album in there would have felt cheap almost because of you're pushing someone else out.
Well, yeah, and it would have also probably been, we don't need to put them in here because we would have done our live shows that we've been at list instead.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah, none of that this year, unless we count like the 3 or 4 shows either of us have been to. The fact that my top gig of the year is Baby Metal says it all.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky to get a good one in when I was like Dream Troll and all that in beforehand. But other than that, I think my top gig of the year so far is a streaming event.
yeah, it's probably actually true. August Burns Bed, but there you go. All right, my next one. Where are we up to? 36. Cataclysm. Obviously, the melodic death metal heavyweights. They released their 14th album this year, Unconquered, September 25th. And it's one of those where you think 14 albums in, and there's a lot of youngsters coming up and doing melodic death metal really, really well. How did Cataclysm answer these? What do? They start stamping on fingers with what is, to me, still one of 2020's most aggressive sounding melodic death metal albums. This is such a beast, and it's non-stop. It's just a banger. Constantly fucking hostile from beginning to the end. It's belligerent. It's almost like it's designed to get in your face and be like, yeah, what are you going to do, you prick? And that's what it felt like constantly. So it really stood out for me on that front.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's one of the reasons why I love the genre so much, because you do get 2 streams of band in it. You get the ones that are melodic death on the melodic side, and then you get the melodic death on the death side. You know, and you get those nice balances. You could actually hold up 2 mellow death bands side by side, and they could be so different from each other. It's unreal.
It's true.
And a lot of the older school ones, you know, you're at the gates, your Cataclysms, all that sort of stuff. I think they stay quite, not all the time, but quite rooted towards the death side of melodic death. You know, it's much more aggressive than the modern sounds.
Not wrong.
Speaking of bands that have been around for a little while, number 35 for me, the album is Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism by Napalm Death.
This was a good album, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. They're a band I like, but they're not a band that ever really blow me away. I just always liked them.
Yep.
But I did think this album really blew me away. I think this album's really, really good, man. And there's something really, really nice about a band that have been doing it for so long to come out and, I guess, shock you a little bit, because I was expecting to like it, but I wasn't expecting to love it.
Yep.
You know, and I loved it. I thought it was like absolutely fantastic. I was like, shit, it's brilliant, man. Go them.
Oh, cool.
You know, It's one of those bands, you know, we've spoken about bands like these before, and they're not alone, but, you know, where they've been around so long, and you've probably caught them at festivals, and you've seen them here and there, or you've seen them even supporting bigger bands, younger bands, but bands that have gone on to be bigger.
Yeah.
And so it's always a bit of like, you know, no problem catching Napalm Death. I'd go and watch them again, but I'm not bothered about it. But this is sort of album where I'm like, no, I really would like to see some of these songs live. You know, I actually would be bothered about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so well done them. Staying fresh after all these years, man.
Yeah, good for them, man. All right, my next one, number 35 for me, Vanishing Point, Dead Elysium, released on August 28th, 2020. Epic melodic metal is the best way to describe this album. It is a classy brew of roaring riffs, massive orchestral elements, huge vocals, kick-ass drumming, all of it. It's music that lifts the soul and makes you feel 10 feet tall, all while urging you to bang your fucking head. I love this album, but one track in particular is one of those that ended up, it didn't get in my top 10 because my top 10 was too tight, but it would have been number 11, number 12. I think it's literally the title track as well of this album. But this is one where you're like, you hear it, you're like, oh my fucking God, like, how aren't you supporting Bon Jovi or something like that? Not because they sound like Bon Jovi, but because they've got that such huge, grand, fist pumping, like, oh man, while still being a heavy metal album, because it's head banging music. Yeah, banging. Yeah. Really like it.
That's the first time Bon Jovi has come up in our top 50s ever.
Yeah, I actually don't know why I said Bon Jovi. I was trying to think of a stadium rock band, and he was the person that jumped in my mind.
Good old John.
Yeah.
So, bit of Doom next for me, another Doom album, and this is Forgotten Days by Paul Bearer. It's really weird, like, you know, I do tend to go into Doom with a a little bit of like I kind of always assume I know what it's going to be like, and with Paul Bearer especially, I do assume I know what it's going to be like, and inevitably it is like it, but there's something about them as a band that it's very difficult not to actually enjoy and like and enjoy listening to. It's not enjoyable music all the time, as in like it's not uplifting, happy music, but you can't help but listen to the songs. You know, there's no part of you that goes, I might skip to the next one or anything like that. You know what I mean? You find they're quite entrancing. I find quite hypnotic as a band to listen to. And it annoys me a little bit, to be honest with you, because I don't want to be hypnotized by Doom. And I'm kind of like, nothing would make me, not true fact, but like nothing would make me happier than to be like, oh, this another Doom album, that shit, another Doom album, that shit. But yeah, the thing with Paul Bearer is that they're never shit. They really aren't.
Oh.
So yeah, enough respect for him, and it's a very, very strong album. Again, as I guess we should just come to expect from the band now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say my thoughts because it's quite high up on my list. 34 for me, Onslaught, The Brits, Generation Antichrist, released on the 7th of August 2020. This was one that featured the new vocalist as well, Dave Garnett, which is always, you know, risky times. Any band, particularly when you already have legendary status as this band does. So expectations were high, while everyone was also like, okay, new vocalist, let's wait and see. But this is just another classic mix of thrash and death that Onslaught do so fucking well. It's wild, it's heavy, it's fast, it's intense. Love it. It's great. Great interview with Nige Rocker of the band as well. Check that out on the YouTube channel. But yeah, it's just a really, really strong album from Onslaught. Proper, almost, I wouldn't say answering critics because there weren't critics, but answering naysayers who were like, oh, new vocalist after this long, you know, come on, guys. Yeah. And it's like, no, everything is going to be fucking fine. Yeah.
It's a difficult thing for a band, isn't it? Of all the things that change, the vocalist is always the one that brings the doubters out.
It is, yeah.
All right, 33 on my list. Yeah. And the album is called This Is Blades of Thunder by the band Blades of Thunder. Who are an LA-based band. It's their second release. They're very independent, very, very new, I guess, to a lot of this stuff. And the second release, it was quite a difficult listen to at first because I was a huge fan of their first release a couple of years back.
Yeah.
And this is a completely different band. Like everybody's changing it except for the main guy who is kind of, it's not a one-man band, but it is to a degree. Like he does all the writing, he does all the vocals, he's a main guitarist. And in the first album, he had like 3 or 4 other guys with him. All of those guys are gone. And there's another, I think he's now just down to a 3-piece, but you know, with a new drummer, new guy on guitar or on bass, can't remember. So they've kind of gone more towards a old school thrash sort of sound. It's very raw, but it's really fucking good to listen to. It does. There's something about the rawness of it, and I don't know if this is even a good thing for a band. That when I listen to it, it actually almost feels like I'm listening back to a classic from the 80s. You know, and it's brilliant. And I do think that the production quality could probably turn off first-time listeners, which is sometimes a benefit of doing something for a review, because you're going to persevere. And if you do persevere, it's well worth it. You know, they're a really, really good band. I hope that they do, you know, eventually settle and become a proper band and use the musical direction. Because the first album was much more kind of classic traditional metal with a really clean production and loads of solos. And the second one is like, you know, much heavier, much rawer, just a drum, bassist, one guitar. You know, a lot of the lead stuff was kind of dropped. So it's like here's two completely different albums from the same band.
Yeah.
But both albums are fantastic, and I really, really, really enjoy it. You know, I said I just hope that they settle and they, you know, choose one of those two directions and just go with it for the future. But
or meet in the middle, combine the metal and the thrash. Okay, that's fascinating. 33 for me. We're to France for The Secret Teaching of Sorrow, for the second album from the French dark alternative rock quartet Melt. I want to read this to you because it's quite specific. So the vocalist and lyricist, Charlotte, she writes her lyrics and sings it in a very unique way in this album. It's what really grabs your attention the very first time you hear it. Her lyrics are honorific, which is a mix of English and sometimes an imaginary invented language. So that there is one of the first things that will grab you when you first hear her vocals, and you'll be like, the fuck is that? Particularly, what she's saying. The very first time I heard this band was in a reaction video, and it was purely done, it wasn't given to me, it was one that was Googled and like, oh, let's check this out. And then by chance, after that, the band got on contact and so on. But these guys, I think the right term is weird, but I don't think it's fair to say that that's off-putting, because it's melodramatic alternative rock. It's not metal per se. It's got very heavy riffs. It's very guitar-driven stuff and very focused on melodies. And this incredible, because I absolutely love the way she sings. She sounds, when she really puts her power into it, she sounds almost desperate and hungry. And it's like, holy shit, what are you doing there? I love it. I love it. Melt, man. Brilliant.
Sounds very odd.
It is odd. It's French. What do you expect?
Right. I'll carry on my little run of doing band.
Oh God.
Like my list is from 20 years ago. And this is Sepultura's Quadra.
Oh wow.
Which is another one that came out much earlier in the year, February 7th by Nuclear Blast. And, you know, I guess, you know, we know that they're forever, every single release they ever do for the rest of the time, they get compared to, you know, certain albums of their back catalogue, and they always have to sort of reprove themselves over and over again.
Over and over again.
Yeah. But inevitably they release consistently good, you know, groove kind of metal.
Yeah.
And Quadra is probably their finest, maybe not their finest with Derek Green, but definitely the best in, I don't know, the last 8 or 10 years.
Decade, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's fantastic. It has all the stuff that you want from Sepultura. You know, it has the rhythms and the bass and the groove. You know, the guitars are great. I mean, Derek Green's a fantastic vocalist anyway, so that's always in there. Song compositions are really, really good. So yeah, I just think it's a really, really good album, man. And it's really cool to see, you know, Sepultura so far into their careers and they're still coming out with albums like that. So go with them.
Yeah, I like the album a lot as well, and it should be worth pointing out that Derek Green has now been in Sepultura longer than Max was in it. So
yeah, considerably as well. Yeah,
get fucking over that.
Yeah.
My next one, number 32, is one that's already been mentioned. It is Bleed From Within, Fracture from May 29th. For me, it's a catchy, energetic, uplifting, ferocious metalcore offering. In my kind of opinion, it's a bit of a renewed Bleed From Within, and I know it's arguable. But for me personally, I think this is their strongest work to date, as I don't think there's a single track in it that lacks in either fire or melodramatic, melodrama. It's got one of the two. It's either quite beastly and heavy and intense, or they're being, I say, maybe overtly melodramatic, but it fits. It fits with the theme of the album, Fracture. It fits with the band style. Big fan of this album. It's why I had it higher.
Yep, consistent as fuck, the whole album, innit? I think I said that in mine. It's like, you know, there isn't a bad song on it at all. You just listen to it end to end, and it's like, yeah, this is good shit.
Yeah.
Number 31. And this is the album is called Siberian Heathen Horde. And it's by the band Wellichorus. And this here is, I guess, evidence that social media advertising can work, because I came across this band when I was watching a video on Facebook. Other social media platforms are available. Do you have to say shit like that? You know, when like it auto plays an ad halfway through it, and the ad it played was a song by these guys.
Okay. Which
part of me was like, oh yes, I'm definitely a metaler, because they're even saying my ads should be black metal. But then the other part of me was like, oh shit, like this is what I was originally billed as pagan metal.
Yep.
Being like advertised on Facebook, and I guess that takes away a little bit of the pagan side feeling a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, really, they should only ever advertise through like burning bushes or signs in the sky,
smoke signals and shit.
Yeah, that sort of shit. But to be honest, it's you know, the pagan metal term is incorrect anyway. Or if they were that originally, then they've changed. They're a mix of Russian, Czech Republican. So there's another country to add to our list of bands we're listening to. It's more symphonic black metal, like kind of more like modern day Dimmu, to be honest. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's really, really good. It's really, really catchy. It's the sort of stuff that would naturally transition people in that gateway between metal and black metal. This is that stuff that sits in the middle.
Oh, right. I get the Dimmu comparison, yeah. Yeah,
you kind of, you know, you've got the big symphonies, big orchestras, but it's also got catchiness to it, which isn't like obviously true black metal to a degree. But you know, you've got all the imagery is still very black metal, and when it's, and the vocals are, and you know, when it's heavy, it's viciously heavy. But across the whole album as a whole, there are songs that are more symphonic. There are songs that are more standard metal, to be honest with you, like people dressed in black metal clothing, but doing standard metal songs. But as an album, it's fucking enjoyable to listen to. That's it. I was thoroughly entertained. You know.
Fantastic. I love that story. Okay, we're about to hit a controversial one. And it's controversial because of its positioning that I've chosen compared to the positioning I know where it is for Brendan. We are now off to Poland. For what is a great album, I just happen to think there are 30 better ones this year, which is a real, I know, I'm very aware. 30.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I did this one. I don't know. But it is a death metal album. I'm not going to go too much into it because I feel Brendan will be able to express the quality of this album. And here's the thing. This is a brilliant album. For me, it's a 9.5 for sure. It's obviously Vader's Solitude in Madness, released quite early on, actually. You kind of forget as well, the 1st of May. We've been going a while on this. And it's one that hit me early on. Then I forgot about it until about September time. And then it got put into a playlist on my car. So it got put in my regular rotation. And I think it's almost like I'm proud, where I'm like, they've been going for so long and they've been through so much. And this is what you're still bringing in 2020. The 1st of May as well. Like, this is what you're still able to bring to the party. And it is just an absolute beast of an album. But it's not just the fact that it's super fucking heavy. It's that it's layered, it's constant, it's consistent, and it's got an incredible array of guitar work, from soloing to just the riffs. Stuff that sometimes you listen to so much metal, particularly in death, where riffs are riffs, and they come, they go, they come, they go, they come, they go. So many times through this album, I felt my ears react and go, oh, wait, wow, that was really good. And you notice that individual moment and so on constantly throughout. And Satan Wept is probably the best track on it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it is like a lot of these top 50, you know, it is end-to-end strong, to be honest. And while that's not my favourite, it's one of the albums for me that I've had a different favourite in May than I did to June, than I did to July, you know. And that's often a sign of a good album, you know, when you're going, you know, a month down the line, you listen to one other song obsessively and you're not even thinking about the one that you were listening to last month.
Yeah, I know it's one of those where it's like you will have you've got way more to say further along.
Yeah. So my next one, number 30, we break into the top 30. And this is a very, very differently positioned to the last time these guys were in my top 50. And this is Dark Tranquillity's new album, Moment.
Fascinating, yeah.
Yeah, which I like it a lot. That's the thing. I really, really like it a lot. But it just didn't catch me the way that Atoma did, which ended up being my album of the year when it came out, what, 3-4 years ago? I can't remember exactly when. 2016 it came out. And this only came out in November. So, you know, maybe it will grow on me a bit further than its current position. But I do like it a lot. I think it's really, really good. You know, I think it carries on from Atoma in that it's got that mix of, you know, the sort of more mellow side of them a lot of the time. But then it has a few nice little touches that hark back to earlier days where it's a little bit more of a straightforward track and a bit heavier and a bit more snarly. So I quite liked the balance of it overall. I think the thing that I found that was different with it to Atoma for me was that whereas Atoma was all one style, so it flowed. Whereas I thought this was a mix of influences from their pretty fucking amazing history, you know, from all their catalog. But what it then meant is that it didn't really flow as an album. So I really, really like it as an album, but more from a collection of songs than I do as a flowing, you know, kind of concept. So, but yeah, still a very good album. You know, 30 on the list. And that's Moment, Dark Tranquillity.
Yeah, it's interesting to say, compare it to Atoma and the impact that had on you as well.
Yeah.
And there's a strong argument as well for you, for your opinion is, at the time of Atoma, your taste in melodic death metal, you've now had 4 years of other bands and other styles that, yeah, maybe Dark Tranquillity try harder.
Luckily, this hasn't come true exactly, but I remember in August last year when we were at Bloodstock, not this year just gone, but the year before, when Dark Tranquillity were one of the 4 bands that were announced at the festival as playing. And then obviously when this year's Bloodstock got cancelled, and then they reconfirmed for the next year. And I remember we spoke about the fact that, well, shit, they might have new music about it. And I remember specifically saying, oh, what if they release a new album and it's shit? Because I'm still waiting. I haven't seen the Atoma cycle, you know. And luckily it's not shit, but, you know.
You'll still be asking for Atoma tracks.
Yeah.
My number 30 is an international group spread across Eastern Europe. Mementium Demanti. The album is In the Tomb of a Forgotten King, a melodic doom, death, and dark metal band. Basically, think a lesser known Carrick Angren. They share a lot in that, in visual style, but also in sound. From the black melody side of things, the black grandiose melodic style that they employ, while also being incredibly heavy and delivering strong, constant rhythms that almost catch you to a certain degree, but also when they want to go very dark and leaning towards a doomier sound as well. It's a very, very unique album. Yeah.
Cool. Number 29 for me. Yeah, 29.
Yeah.
For some reason, I've written 29 and 27 on my bit of paper.
Okay.
But it's not. It better not be. No, it's not. Yeah, so number 29 for me, and this, I guess, is back to one of those albums where maybe it's more of a blow the cobwebs off, and that is the band Worm, or WVRM, and their album Colony Collapse, which came out in 2020, but I can't remember when, but quite a while back, if I remember correctly. 3rd of April, there you go, I have written it down. 3rd of April it came out, so yeah, very much back in just after lockdown time. Maybe that was why I was quite keen on something to just blow cobwebs off.
Yeah.
And it is, I think they build themselves as being South Carolina's only grindcore band. I don't know if that's like legitimately true, but
fair enough.
Very well maybe, because it's not the sort of music you would naturally expect to come from somewhere like South Carolina. You'd be back into your bluesy sort of swampy, you know, doom and sludge and everything like that, you know.
Swampy stuff, blues.
This is it's exactly what you'd expect it to be. It is for a grind band. It is fucking heavy and consistently heavy, pretty much from the start to the end. I think it's about like 34-35 minutes long, despite having something like 17 tracks on it. And it is just an absolute blast of insane drumming and distorted riffs and vicious vocals. And there's lots of multi-layering on the vocals, which is really, really cool. That's cool. It adds that extra tone to it. And I think I wrote in the review and just kind of made a note over here, is like, this is the shit that you play, you know, to scare your parents or shock your nicer friends. You know, so straight in your face, heavy, heavy stuff, man.
My next one there, my number 29th, is less about scaring the parents, more about chilling out with a cosmic mix of stoned out and progressive sludge rock. It is Metamorphosis via Void of Sleep, released on March 27th this year. Simply put, this is a bit of an opus in the sense that there is no, it's like trying to grab, it's going to be a weird analogy. It's a scared cat running around a flat and you're trying to grab them and they're constantly out of, like, trying to grab and hold on. It's like you're trying to hold on to something that's just moving too fast. And
so in my head, all I've got now is Rocky Balboa chasing a chicken.
Yeah, even that. Yeah, the direction changes. Yeah, you think, oh, I'm about to grab you, and it zooms off to the left because it goes somewhere fucking weird there. And it's just a very, very rich and detailed album, which constantly will bog you down with the sludge side of things, but then drops in these otherworldly sounds, drops in the atmospheres that have an emotional impact as well. And because it often comes at such unexpected times, it momentarily leaves you like discombobulated, but then really excited and going, oh my God, you've done something there. Let me continue to listen on. Yeah, really unique album. One of the more unique ones on this list.
Yeah, sounds it. I don't know how. I was trying to thinking about this when I wrote it, and I realized, like, I don't know if you had anything similar when I was writing it, that I kind of picked up the trend of the albums I'd been loving this year, and like a lot of the stuff I've been listening to this year, which I wouldn't necessarily always listen to, had been more on the extreme side. And I think that's what influenced like a lot of my number ones and that side of thing. So. And that's also what influenced my number 28 on my list, which is, very, very, very much extreme metal. And this is Where Only God May Tread by Ingested. Uniquely, the record came out in August the 14th. And similar, I guess, to Colony Collapse, this is not really one for experimentation or for, trying out new ideas or being progressive or anything like that. It is exactly what it's meant to be. And that is an extreme album, just meant to really kind of fuck you up a little bit.
Yeah.
The sort of shit that even the biggest of you will be a bit worried about being in the pit for, and it does exactly that, man. It's a big, booming, heavy blast of metal. It's a good album.
Yeah, I love this album. I'll get more into it later on. Covering one that you previously mentioned now, my number 28 is Godthrymm's Reflections by the British Doom metal band, released February 14th. That's Valentine's Day, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. There you
Good
go.
release date.
Yeah, what Brendan said, I already echoed as well, but this is a triumph of an album for me. It's bearing witness to what Godthrymm, not just what they've accomplished here, but what they've grown to over the last couple of years. To me, it's almost preposterous how incredible this album is. It's a doomy fucking cake with a richness of percussion and downright chilling, melancholy sounds at times of being intensely heavy, great guitar work, great vocals. I love this band, so this is just another great release from them.
Cool. Number 27, UK band again for me, and this was more of this was not even more of a definite comeback album, and this is Cycle of Suffering by Silosis.
Oh, yeah.
Released a Nuclear Blast, another one back in February. It's quite a lot back in earlier in the year, which is really cool because I guess it shows the longevity of them albums.
Yeah.
Lasting all this way and still being in your mind. I guess they had a fair bit of hype about the fact they were coming back.
There is that.
There was a bit of hype about it, but I think they didn't just like live up to it. They probably surpassed it massively with an album that is pretty fucking heavy. It's very much them still. It still felt like a Silosis album even after the gap that there's been.
True.
But it didn't feel like a harking back to, this is remember us from all these time ago. It felt like a well-placed modern album, like Silosis had never been gone, more so. And it's very enjoyable. I wouldn't have always set myself as being like a huge Silosis fan, despite the fact that through being at UK shows, I think I'd seen them about 10 times.
Yeah.
A lot, and I'd never disliked them. But this album, I guess from the hype, made me want to listen to it more. And yeah, I massively enjoyed it. I think it's a really, really strong album, and fingers crossed they're back on a permanent basis now and can kind of continue at this level.
Seems to be done it, because obviously they were going to do live shows as well, did streaming stuff like that, so it certainly seems to be back. Go on, sticking to the early portion of the year, 24th of January to be exact, Nostromo by the band Eldon, inspired by the cold darkness of time and space. Now, I presumed, I don't know this for a fact, but I presumed the title of the album, Nostromo, was named after the ship in the original Alien movie, the 1979 movie.
Oh, it's not a pasta then.
No, I don't think it is, unless I'm wrong.
No, I'm joking.
Could very well be.
It sounds like a pasta.
So this has kind of got a combination of where it conjures up the imagery of like a vast emptiness with cold melodies and stuff like that, particularly when it first begins. But it's not actually predominantly that. It's predominantly quite groovy and progressive for the most part, with rocking clarity of rhythmic melodies here and there, and just dark metal heaviness, a constant mix of it. It's quite, considering the intro kind of sets up this scene, it actually stays quite hot throughout, hot tempo, deep chugging guitars, strong vocals, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall, great album.
Cool. And same on the UK bands for my next one. And this is the follow-up to Sarkov's. This was, sorry, I can't remember the name of the fucking first. Oh, Jera. There you go, the first album. Follow-up to Jera by Sarkov with Cult of Nature. Jera, sorry, is the pronunciation wrong. Cult of Nature came out in November, so relatively more recent than some of them, and they continue to impress, to be honest with you. We're obviously very familiar with them at the site anyway, but you're judging this stuff on the music and the music alone, and it's professional and it's nicely blended between, I guess, atmospheric and black metal. I know that musically sometimes it can actually be more black metal, but this kind of whole nature aspect to it works really, really well. They're like I said, they continue to impress. So yeah, I think really, really good. One of the highlights of the underground in that sort of genre over here at the moment.
Absolutely. I'll elaborate on my thoughts a little further along. 26, Touche Amore, and their fifth studio album, Lament, out on October 9th, 2020. No, I mean, post-hardcore. I know of Touche Amore.
Post.
Yes, but I know of Touche Amore before, but I've never really given them much time. And I wasn't actually going to review this album. We got it through in the promos, and I was like, I don't really fancy it. Don't know the band well enough. I'm going to leave it. And the PR guy, I don't want to sound like this to sound like I'm mean, but he bugged me a few times about it. And hey, if you want to twist me around, just send me more than one email about the same album. And I tend to go, all right then. So I ended up giving it a go, and fuck was I glad I did. Honestly, what a fucking album. From what it deals with. Now, for those who know the band, obviously this is a follow-on from the previous album that paid tribute to his late mother and the passing of his mother and stuff like that. So this still has the same level of depth, but obviously doesn't have quite the same meaning. Is that the right word? I don't want to sound like on the plane what this album has in it, but it is when it comes out musically, post-hardcore energy, passionate, furious, fast, heavy when it wants to be, but also incredibly evolutionary as well for what they're doing with melodies and stuff like that. And one track in particular is in my top 10 tracks of the year. And it's the finale. It's a forecast. The song's called A Forecast. And when I first heard that track, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was just like, holy fuck, how imaginative is this? But if you don't want to really hear, I don't want to hear detailed analysis from a band, I just want to hear quality post-hardcore that gets me moving. They deliver, more than deliver. Yeah.
Cool. I love that word, post.
It's a great word.
So let's got another UK band next, but this is from a different era to a lot of the UK bands that we've had on our list so far, and this is the metal trio Raven. So Raven released their 14th studio album in September. The album's called Metal City, and the great thing about it is that sounds like an album name from a band from a long time ago. And I know of Raven, but I guess only when writing a review do I kind of realize, like, maybe I should know a shitload more about Raven. They formed in 1974 in Newcastle upon Tyne. Bands of the likes of Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica have all class them as an influence.
Really?
You know, these guys were releasing albums before bands like Metallica formed. You know, so when the American new wave of British heavy metal came up, it was bands like Raven that were inspirations for it. Which is crazy to think that, you know, in comparison, you know, size and scale now, you know, obviously they all went in different directions a little bit.
Yeah.
But as an album, it is old school traditional thrash metal. You know, it is fast, it's catchy, it's rocking, it's got some really, really cool stuff going on in it. It's got Mike Heller from Fear Factory on drums, or ex-Fear Factory on drums. And then the core of the band, which has always been, and I found this quite funny with it. So there's obviously a few other members, but the core of the band all the way through is two brothers that formed it, and they're the Gallagher brothers. And so I got to write in my review that they are the best two Gallagher brothers who have a band from the north of England.
Controversial, but I agree. I 100% agree.
I was so happy with that. I was like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah,
You know, it's really, really cool, man. There's so much. It's such a great, easy to listen to album, easy to rock out. You know, it's predominantly fast throughout. It does have like little layers to it. It touches. It doesn't sound like an album from the 70s or 80s. It sounds like a modern album from a band who've been doing it a long time. It sounds like an experienced album. And like, you know, if you want to touch on, I'm just going to touch on one track in it. If anyone wants to give them a go, it's only about 2.5, 3 minutes long, and it's called Motorheading, and it's a tribute to obviously Motorhead, but in particularly to Lemmy. And it is a 2.5, 3 minute long blast of a song, but your jaw will drop when they do the chorus in it, and it's their song completely all the way through, but all of a sudden the main riff of Ace of Spades is in the chorus, and then it's back to them again. It just comes out of the blue, and it's got nice little touches like that, you know. So yeah, blew me away. Really, really impressive stuff, man.
Awesome. Sounds awesome, man. That's not one I've heard this year.
Check out Motorheading.
Yeah. Number 25 for me then. Sticking to the UK, to our shores, but more in England, specifically in England as well for this album. Foxjaw. And their debut full-length album, Royal Swan, which was released on the 3rd of July 2020. And the reason why I'm saying England is because this album is all about detailing the tension that's inherent in the modern day of Great Britain, the sense of isolation and resentment in the UK, and so on, and the issues surrounding pride in your own country, where you can be proud from where you come from, but how do you draw the line between that pride and xenophobia, racism, and all the other bollocks that tends to come with that? Or the simple fact, if you turn around and say, I love my country, there are many people out there that will turn around and go, you fucking racist.
Yeah,
without any kind of thing. So this album deals with a lot of these themes and songs. And there's a fascinating interview with Foxjaw on the YouTube channel that goes into a lot of these details. And it really is fascinating. From a guy that isn't English, even though you might think I am, I'm not. It's always fascinating to see anyone approach these kind of subjects, particularly in the 2020s, when we're right, you know, as of the time recording, a week short of leaving the European Union and stuff like that. It's fascinating, you know?
Dying of viruses.
Yes, and that as well. And no lettuce.
No lettuce. What are we going to do? Who the fuck's eating salad in December?
Apparently, I didn't know this. I'm going off subject here, right? But maybe it's because of our upbringing. But I did not know up until, I think, 2 years ago, that apparently a staple of Christmas for a lot of people is a prawn cocktail.
Yeah, I know this, but it's never happening in my fucking life. I can tell you that. Because that has got one of the components of food that I will never ever eat, and that is seafood sauce. I've got no problem with
prawns. I like lettuce.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But yeah, you pour that white creamy seafood sauce all over that food, and that's a different dish now, isn't it? Somebody puts a plate in front of me with a bit of lettuce and some prawns on it, I'll be like, yeah, all right, sit some sweet chili sauce on that, and I'll wrap it up and eat it.
There you go.
Pull out a jar of squeezy white sauce that looks like I don't know, salad cream or mayonnaise, but it's pink and smells of fish, and pour that over it. I'm feeling different about that meal now.
But Foxjaw, yes, the music is, it's got a mix of melodic indie rock vibes that has the idea that, wow, that should have mainstream appeal. However, so eclectic and progressive and heavy rockiness of the overall product is where you see the weirdness come out, and where you're like, okay, this is where people get challenged. Combination of dreamlike melodies, gut-wrenching wilder flurries. It's so one of the newest and freshest things I've heard this year. It's proper one of these clever little things where it's like, oh, okay, there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of ideas going on here. you've managed to put it all together, and it could really get. I'd say it could, but because of 2020 as a whole, it could really get attention if the right people look that way. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going a bit further from home then on my next one. International band on Napalm Records from Austria, and this is the symphonic metalist Serenity and their album The Last Night, as in KNIGHT.
Yeah.
A kind of concept album dealing with the kind of Camelot, King Arthur-ish, Aragon sort of days. Not a band I was massively big on beforehand. It came out on the 31st of January, so a long time ago. And I can tell you that 3 or 4 of these songs, like, yeah, I would not daily, you know, but they're at least weekly listens to me. The whole album didn't have longevity for me. Had like a good 3 months out of it, but 3 or 4 songs would be like, yeah, these songs are around forever. And one of them actually is in one of my playlists, which has things like Love, Grace and stuff like that by Devin Townsend, which is my make me feel better stuff.
Oh, really? Awesome.
You know, yeah. So I really like it. It is exactly what you'd expect. It's classed as symphonic metal. It is symphonic metal, but it's power. It's symphonic power metal. It has all of the lead guitar insanity you want. It has all the tropes. It has the halfway through we got a ballad.
Yeah.
It's a big grand epic ending. You know, it has everything that you would almost, if you wanted to map it out, but it don't matter because it's all done really, really well. You know, that's it.
I put my hands on my head and going like that because as you're talking, I just realized one of these tracks is in your top 10 tracks of the year because I was trying to find a piece of, I was then spent ages cutting through that track, trying to find a segment that I felt represented it nicely enough. So I basically
the song Souls and Sins.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Song that's so good that they did an acoustic version of it at the end of the album.
Oh, was that any better?
Oh, they're both really, really good, but I guess the acoustic version is slowed down and sadder, so it kind of wouldn't necessarily go in your make me feel better playlist. It'll be your I feel good, make me feel worse playlist.
Right, I did already hear you say this. You said this in the video.
Yeah.
Right, what am I on about? What am I on about?
Where am I?
We're a Dutch band. We're meeting up with a Dutch band this time for the doom noise trio that is Vader or Farer, Farer. Monod, which was actually released quite late, 20th of November. So one of the later ones we actually have in here. What is really fascinating alone about this band, so you hear the term doom and noise. So you're like, okay, this is going to be heavy. And what helps that? No guitar. 2 bass players.
Fucking hell.
Turn
it off.
It gives them such a unique and compelling edge, man. Like straight away I was like, well, that I have to hear this. And it's 4 tracks long and it is fucking insane. It's jarring at time with high-pitched screaming and wails, no rhythm, choppy drum beat, so grief-stricken at times, ear-splitting feedback from the bass. It's mental, but it is fucking brilliant. It is so clever, so unique, so different to what I've heard this year that I just fell so in love with it. Every moment the track would go, all right, here's a really slow basic thrum and we're going somewhere here. And then I would just be assaulted with what sounded like people dropping an entire kitchen's worth of cutlery and people are wailing and screaming to the sound of bass. And I'm just like, this is amazing. Yeah. I haven't sold it very well, have I?
To some people, I would imagine you have very, very well. I mean, to me, maybe not so much. I mean, how many times on every video that we ever do I comment on the fact that, you know, it's all about the guitars for me. So,
yeah.
You go, no guitars. I was like, well, that's me done. It sounds like, it sounds interesting. It does sound interesting. Yeah. So big album for this band this year in my 23rd place. And this is Unleash the Archers album, Abyss. Napalm Records came out in August 21st as well. Not a band I particularly cared an awful lot about pre this album, and I didn't really care about this album when it came out, but I saw this album get hyped to fuck.
Yeah,
like everyone was talking about this album, and because of that I felt like I had to check it out. And I checked it out and I really, really, really liked it. And I was really glad I did, because I was like, oh, this is, you know, phenomenal. It's another album, another band that I've not been a fan of that I can now say, yeah, I'm in. I'm involved. It is, you know, it's fast. It's shreddy. There's lots of guitars. It's the opposite, I guess, to what the one that you just did.
Yeah.
You know, vocals are great, drums great. It's got everything that, you know, you want from this sort of style of music. And yeah, really, really good. So I kind of picked up by the hype from it and listened to it, and the hype was real. So
It's nice that when it worked out that way. You're right about this band being hyped up, dangerously hyped up as well.
yeah, it's worrying in it, because it's the sort of shit where like you're thinking like, God, people, like when your next release comes out, people are going to be all over you like a rash. And if it isn't 10 times better than this, they'll say that, oh, you know, it's a one-off.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be 10 times better than this, and that's the worry in it, because you're like, this is really, really good. This is when you get to this sort of peak. What you should, as a band, be trying to do is to at least stay there.
Yeah.
Not to try and beat it every time, but stay there. And often with fans and media, that's not enough, is it?
No, you're right. Okay, staying with the weird, we're going to the German dark metalers, Not Blut. Their sixth full-length album, Vantius, which was released on October 2nd. I went into this, now this is a bit of a legendary band, but I don't really think I've ever heard anything by them. And my understanding going into it was, well, oh, dark metal, I presume they mean black metal. And there is a little bit of that to the degree, but no, what they mean by dark metal is this is a very weird and unusual band who released this album with a very unique and eclectic style of tunes, stuff that is very heavy, but stuff at times that has folk metal elements, folksy as fuck. Other times there's music that sounds like a fucking carnival. There's atmospheric dark stuff. There's elaborate synth and things like that, stuff that makes every particular moment feel very different. There's a track that's heavy on the electronica that shares more in common with the likes of, say, Rammstein and that period more than anything else, while elsewhere you've got tracks that just have this rocking groove to it, and it's just constantly odd. But yeah, I ended up really, really finding myself fascinated by this album. I'm really enjoying it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So what is next on my list? I just moved for some reason. There we go. Okay, so back away from the power metal for a little bit, and we had a couple power metals in the album, so I must have needed something heavy. And number 22 for me is The Entombment of Chaos by Skeletal Remains, which was a September release. You know, it is very, very fucking heavy. It is a little bit more expansive than a usual Skeletal Remains album, to be honest with you. I think if you're expecting it to just be 100% blown away by the heaviness, you still will be. Yeah. But there's more. You know, there's this whole thing we've spoken about for a bit now, which is like the bands that have been around a little while, showing that they can still evolve and mix it with all the newbies with their new ideas, trying to break through. Yeah. And this has got a lot of that. You know, it's got some songs that are. It's got an instrumental, for example. It's got some atmospheric elements. It's got, you know, blackened sections. I think in your review you said blackened doom, but I'll just drop the word doom. I just say some blackened sections, but you know, it's still got their core heaviness in it, and that's what I like about it. It's not like they've taken some mad change of direction to the point where this isn't Skeletal Remains. It's very, very clearly them, but them that have evolved. Yeah. You know, so yeah, great album.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments as well. It's a very evolutionary album, one not moving too far away from the Skeletal Remains sound. And once again, got an interview with Chris Monroe of the band. And there's several interviews with Chris, actually. One before a live show back December 2018. And more recently this year to do with the new album, which we go into depth about this difference in style and things like that. My number 22, Empress, and their latest album, Premonition. This came out on, I can't find it, 9th of October. However, it comes with a story. They are a two-piece who were once a three-piece. The band was struck by tragedy when their bass player, Brendan Gunn, died in October 2019. Parts of the album had already been written, so the other two members decided to finish the album and finish it as a tribute to their passing of their brother, basically. We have here an album that is very much a progressive doom album. Very, very focused on that with elements of post and sludge in there as well. It's a very emotionally raw album. Even if you don't know the story, it comes across through the kind of weathered and darkness tone it tells. Very poignant at times, while also without missing a beat on the doom side of things, with filthy riffs and fuzzy groove and plenty of energy here and there, but bassy halts and slow, sludgy eruptions. It's all very, very interesting stuff that has emotional weight to it.
Cool. 21.
Yeah.
Getting to the serious shit now.
Yep.
And this is another one that I guess was a real surprise for me, because it's a band that have been around for a reasonably long time, and this is Primal Fear and the album Metal Commando. You gotta love these old bands, don't you? Raven band, Metal City, and this one, Metal Commando. It's just like
title.
Put the word metal in there and then something after it, and it's all good. German band, obviously very, very famous band, been around a long time. Released this album on the 24th of July via Nuclear Blast. And it surprised the hell out of me, to be honest, because a solid band. I knew they're solid. I'd never say that I was a big fan of them. I went into it thinking, oh, this should be good, something traditional to listen to. And it is traditional, but it's so modern as well. You know, again, like Ravens, it doesn't sound like you're listening to something from the past being, I don't know, re-glorified for modern times, because it's easy to do. It sounds like a modern album that could just as easily have been pushed out by some young whippersnappers trying to recreate the new wave of traditional heavy metal sound or something like that. The vocals are fucking amazing. I mean, obviously the singer was in, I can't remember the name of the exact cover band, but he was in a Judas Priest cover band.
Okay.
And when Rob Halford joined Priest, he was also one of the people who auditioned to join Priest. So he could have been the singer instead of Rob Halford.
Right.
Which is like unbelievable, like unthinkable. But what it does, obviously, for those two to be kind of going head to head for this position, it shows the range that this guy's voice is, and it is similar pitches, and it's catchy, it's thrashy, it's in your face. It has a nice little mix of music across it. It does have a couple of like more grandiose sort of epic sounding songs with slower solos, but for the most part of it, it's fast, thrashy, Priest like music. So yeah, really, really good.
Awesome. Right, well, my 21 then before we hit the top 20. Veil of Imagination by Wilderun, released on July 17th this year. Now, I'm going to actually read word for word what I wrote in the first paragraph of my review for this album, because apparently I got drunk and just decided to start writing just one word over and over, one word as many different ways as I could. Transcendent, supreme, magical, thought-provoking, fascinating, intriguing, exciting, stirring, stimulating, dreamy, haunting, gorgeous, smart. So many ways to describe Wilderun's Veil of Imagination, an album that is simply unforgettable. So yes, this is progressive rock done to probably the best progressive rock album of the entire year. From how cleverly written it is to how dreamy it can be and smart and uplifting, so warming it can be, to the emotionally affecting symphonic elements and the melodramatic stuff that appears in this album as well, all while still having a hard rock, sometimes metal-leaning stuff with medley of riffs and solos and symphonic speed as well. There's energy here while still being constantly like, whoa, what are they going to do next? Yeah.
Number 20 on the list.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a departure for me because I guess it isn't necessarily my normal sound. And that is the album To Dull the Blades of Your Abuse by Leached.
It's funny that you bring this one up.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's death, but like it's more like I kind of felt like it was more like an extreme hardcore album at times. And it is one of those albums that are designed, I think, to make the listener uncomfortable. It's not designed purely as a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
It utilizes a lot of feedback and noise, and it is walls and walls of it just kind of consume you. I think I classed it as recorded chaos. But I and I guess this is why titles are important. I got hooked into this album by the name of the album, To Dull the Blades of Your Abuse, and I just thought that's such a cool fucking name. I've got to check it out, and I ended up really, really liking it. Not the sort of thing I listen to. Yeah, not the sort of thing I listen to every day. It ain't the sort of thing you could listen to every day, but it is there. And when you're feeling that sort of chaotic aggression, it's the perfect album for that. So yeah, there you go, number 20.
Cool. My number 20 is something very different. Like, couldn't be more different. It's the One Area, and it's the album Injection, led by Greek multi-instrumentalist Philippios Gourogamis. and it's a multicultural project. Members across Greece, Italy, and Germany. An Injection was released on March 13th. Very unique album, ability to lift the mind and soul, very engaging, 9 wonderful tracks. It's got this sound at times that makes you really think of the 80s without it being like an 80s rock or metal album, but its use of synth and how it does that. I swear there were times where I was like, wasn't this on the soundtrack, The Flashdance? That's the Kevin Bacon film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon film, yeah? Yeah, like that's
Kevin
how,
Bacon, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's how this sometimes sounds, and it's so fucking weird. But like, you're listening to it and you're like, I'm not sure if I like, and by the end of it, you're like, yeah, I love that. That was great. That was great fun. That's really made me feel quite energy. Like you're walking down the street and suddenly without even realizing that you're skipping and you're doing shit like this.
But you starting to do the flash dance stuff.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, I ended up, I have 3 songs from this album in my...
Oh, hang on. Sorry. Kevin Bacon one's Footloose, isn't it?
Footloose. That's not Flashdance. Yeah, okay, well done. At least we got that right. Yeah, I've got 3 tracks of this 9-track album. I've got 3 of these tracks in my best of 2020 playlist that I listen to in my car. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's some good impact there, man. So my number 19 then is another, I guess, change of direction, especially from Leached, but also for me a little bit, and that is Eclipse by Massey. Who, to be honest, and I do mean this in every respectful way possible, I had no idea who he was at the beginning of the year. That's the honest truth about it. But like, what an amazing talent! Like, genuinely, absolute brilliant. I like the fact that the album is, I guess, a little more mellow than I normally listen to. You know, it was almost my mellow album. It's not mellow, like as in it's soft all the way through, because it's not. It's actually got quite a lot of hard hitting music in it. But I just mean in, like, you know, when you're holding it up against, I don't know, Vader, Worm, Skeletal Remains. You know, this was like my little breath of fresh air that I kind of found myself listening to a lot this year. Like I said, lots and lots of stuff go on the album. There's lots of different elements, lots of different influences, obviously, that the guy has. I was just blown away by the talent, man. Like, honestly, it was just like, this is fucking amazing. So yeah, Massey.
Cool. 19 for me. Carrick Angren's Frankensteinia Stratomontanius. Weird how I struggle to say so many, but that one, no problem. Yeah. Easy as pie. Yeah, the Dutch Masters of Horror, man. This is arguably the most flamboyant album so far. It's telling the gruesome story of Conrad Depel, who was the inspiration for Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein, released during 2020. Not the novel. The novel is centuries old. The album. But yeah, it's kind of like with Carrick Angren, particularly at this point. I've been a fan with them for many, many years now. I expect splendor, theatrics, all the stuff, that magical mystery, that transportation to a wicked kingdom. And they absolutely deliver it. This one for me is less gothic, more horror than anything else. But there is some fucking killer tracks in this album. It's incredible. It's still rooted in that black metal sound they have, from the vocals to the riffs and all that. But the symphonic elements and that sense of majestic wonder that they create is so strong on this. The title track is one of my top 10 tracks of the year. I've listened to that so fucking much. I love this album. Yeah,
it's a great album. Number 18 on the list, and this is the album For the Sick by Red Method.
Cool.
Debut album, which took what felt like years to come out.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen the guys play a couple of times. We've spoken to them. Obviously, there's some videos up on the YouTube channel, some interviews at Bloodstock. And the album was always, it'll be coming soon. It was like, when is it going to come? But when it came out, I really, really liked this album. You know, it's got that nice kind of aggressive energy to it. There's lots of energy actually to it. It's a very energetic album, but it's not even hidden, but it's got depth. You know, it's got a deep message behind it. You know, it deals a lot with the mental illness side of things, which I very much like listening to, and appreciate the fact that the band address it. Yeah. You know, and because of that, and because of its context, I guess even though it's often heavy and energetic and in your face, it's still quite an emotional listen. So yeah, I mean, I guess anytime I listen to an album and the impact on me is that I feel emotional and drawn in and involved, and you know, like this is written for me or about somebody I know, you know what I mean? And it gives you that kind of personal connection to the album. So that's why it kind of features so heavily, so highly down my list. But yeah, strong.
Absolutely. I love Red Method. I have a lot of love, a lot of affection for that band. I really, really do. And For the Sick is a great album.
Yeah.
My 18 choice then is with the Phylifs, The Reckoning Dawn. The sixth full length from obviously the pioneers of British black metal. Find me a black metal band in the UK coming up young and all that who won't cite Winter Phyllis as an influence. There isn't any. In some way or another, they have affected, if not our own country, the world. Released May 8th, 2020. And it was great to have them back and focusing on the more traditional sound, which very much 8 scorching, distinctive, atmospheric, and magnificent black metal tracks. I felt like a very much an invigorated, excited, almost enjoying, not saying I haven't enjoyed what they've previously done, but you know, when it's been a couple of years, it's like, okay. And a couple of years in metal, in any particular part of the scene, you can obviously slip down and lose your way, that kind of thing, but not here. No, this is just confirmation that they're just as important and relevant as ever.
Yep. Cool. So they do feature in my list a little further down. So, but just to annoy the hell out of you, because I know that you're right, I'm going to call them Winter Phyllis.
I spent ages teaching myself to say this damn name properly.
So I will purposely say it wrong. So in my list so far, which has featured bands like Raven, Primal Fear, Sepultura, I'm going to continue on pretending I'm back 20 years ago with my next band and album, and this is A Wonderful Life by Mushroomhead.
Oh, goodness me.
and true story, I would never ever purposely go in to review an album to negatively review it. But I do remember my assumption on this when this came out, thinking, fuck me, I haven't listened to Mushroomhead for years. However, I did see them live relatively recently when they supported Insane Clown Posse over here in the UK. And I remember watching them live and thinking, I think I've spoken about it, wow, that was really fucking good.
Yeah.
And then when the album came out, and I was like, look, I ain't going to like it. I know I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to listen to it anyway and see if I get any of that live magic back. Maybe it'll hook me. But a worst case scenario, I get to write a negative review because I haven't done one of those for about a month, you know. And then I listened to it, and I just did not expect to like it as much as I did. And this album, you know, it came out. I didn't make a note when it came out, but it came out a while back in the year, and I adore listening to it. I listened to it. I think I definitely was listening to it today, and yesterday, and the day before. I'm pretty sure as well. It is much cleaner than I don't know why I had visions in my head, because I think a lot of the time their artistic visuals give the impression that you're going to get a Slipknot-esque kind of like blast of metal. But it's cleaner, it's more commercial, and if I was being on the fence, I would argue this is radio-friendly metal to a degree. But it's just fucking great to listen to. It is so catchy. The vocals are amazing. You know, they're obviously, and they're not, they're alternative is what they class themselves as, or theatrical or artistic metal.
Yeah.
And you do get a lot of elements. There is synth, there is no real necessary kind of concept behind the album. It's just like, I think it's very long. I think there's like 17 or 18 songs on it, but they all have their own thing, their own story, their own little piece of magic going on. But the thing that I always loved about Mushroomhead of the past, I felt they had back here, and that is that the vocals in the past were amazing, and you always had that mix of the guy that was more on the heavier metal side.
That's right.
You had the cleaner singer, and then you had the kind of hip-hop based rap vocals that came in with it as well. And while the names have changed a lot in the band, they have recaptured that now by having the female as the clean singer, the original heavy metal singers being in there, and the more rap side. And it's an exercise in how to write a catchy fucking album that every song I listen to gets stuck in my head, every one of them. And like, even just talking to you about it now, I've got songs going around in my head where I'm like, should I just pause the video? I just listen to that one quickly and then I'll come back. You know.
19th of June, by the way, I checked.
Was it June? Yeah.
Okay,
feels like only yesterday.
Well, my next one you've already mentioned. My 17th album of the year is Rick Massey's Eclipse. You already mentioned solo artist, metal musician. He's from Whitehorse and Yukon. Lots and lots of influences and certainly many styles in this album. I'm going to list some: black metal, death metal, prog, pop, avant-garde, cinematic, electronica, and more. There's a lot going on in this album. May 1st, 2020. Echoing what Brendan said, it's gorgeous at times. It's beautifully melodic. It's got haunting vocals to the heavier moments that produce phenomenal sounds, to peacefulness that is interrupted by catchy guitar rhythm, before transcendent beauty with wonderful post-metal edges. There's a lot of wow. There's no flukes in this. There's no moment where you're like, oh, well, that was just one track. The next will not be as good as that. It's a monumental effort that even throws in epic moments and proggy bits here with savage heaviness. I was the same. Brendan said it already, and it's not meant in a slur. Of course it's not. Didn't have a clue who Rick Massey was at the beginning of this year. Won't ever forget him now.
Yeah. That's great that it's in both of our top 20s as well.
Yeah, real impact, man. Really, just completely such a surprise. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got me my radio-friendly mushroom head out of the way now. Yeah. So I'll redeem myself a little bit then with my number 16 on the list, which is the album Endarkenment by Anil Nathrak.
Cool.
Do you know what I really I noticed? I didn't notice this while I was writing it, but I've noticed while we've been doing this video is a lot of the bands that we've talked about, how it's been great to see that after all this time they're still evolving. Yeah. Have been on the extreme side. And this is another band that I think, despite the fact that, you know, you don't go into these sorts of albums expecting like ballads or anything like that, and it doesn't have that. It's still fiery, it's still fucking aggressive and heavy and angry and violent, really. But it has more to it. There are little moments here and there that show a band, you know, 11 albums in, that are not standing still, that still got some ideas, you know, that are still willing to switch things up just a touch, you know, so that they're still them, but, you know, that little bit of evolution, you know. And I think it's fantastic. I love it when, especially on the extreme side of it, where it's so easy to just churn out another album, and people will lap it up, you know, for the most part. With a band like Anil Nathrak, people would have probably still gone, yeah, banger, you know, if it had literally just been a repeat of the 10th album.
Yeah, part 2,
but they're not willing to do that themselves. You know, they're like, no, we're not going to stand still. We got more to offer. I think that's fantastic. 11 albums in, so yeah, really good album.
No arguments here. You know, this is a coincidence, but my 16th choice is by Dark Forest. It's Oak, Ash, and Thorn. And I swear to God, I'm not having an England kick, because basically Dark Forest, they're traditional heavy metal, but mix it with a kind of epic tales from the heart of England's long and storied past.
Mister,
you know?
I'm not English, mate. I'm not.
Yeah, April 24th, 2020. But yeah, this is a near perfect slice of just, sometimes I just want this, where it's just glorious heavy metal, lots of pomp, bombastic beats, energetic, just proper like fist in the air. Come on, guys, let's fucking do this. Hit me with a banging solo. That's some killer riffs. Yes, let's go marching on the walls of York. That kind of thing, you know?
For Wessex.
Yeah.
For Wessex.
Yeah, I find this album is one I just keep coming back to when I just really want something, not simple, that's the wrong word, but where I'm just like, don't need complex, just want heavy metal. This is what I go to.
And here we go then for what may be my last one, which makes me sound like I'm doing a list from the early 2000s.
All right.
And this is We Are Chaos by Marilyn Manson.
Oh, of course.
And this is the crazy thing with this album, right? Is I'm not a huge Manson fan, but the songs I like from Manson are generally they're not ballads, but his slower, darker, gloomier side, you know, songs like Coma White, Tourniquet, you know, that sort of stuff. That's the Manson I like, and I could happily take a whole album of that, and that's what I got.
Yep.
Because there is very little of the hyped up full band are involved synth sort of rock. It is pretty much Manson, not on his own. I assume there are other people playing instruments for him and stuff like that as well, you know. But it's quite a slow down, low tone, gloomy, ballady kind of album. So for me, it is literally, if somebody said to me like, design your perfect Manson album, this is probably it. And I could honestly say, because I started writing a list for myself on the phone that I'll probably turn into an article one day, that I realized while listening to this that 4 of my now all-time favorite Manson songs are on this album.
Oh, wow.
You know, because we're keeping in mind that, you know, I like his album enders a lot of the time, you know. And yeah, and I just found that this is an album of album closers.
That's
me.
amazing.
So, yeah.
We've said this a lot in videos over the last couple of years whenever we've crossed Manson's path. But we've been saying for quite a while now here, me and Brendan, the site, that we think Manson's best work has actually come in the last decade, the last couple of
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. And I guess, you know, that's what, you know, we're quite quick to commend your anal nathorax and your skeletal remains for their ability to continuously evolve and, you know, stay relevant. So, you know, it's only fair that I say the same about Manson, to be honest with you. The fact that after all this time and all the drama, is probably a fair word to say, that surrounds Manson wherever he goes, that he, in the last 10 years, is churning out some of his most mature work, I think, ever.
I think the word mature works with this new album.
Yeah.
Number 15, Glare of Deliverance by Genus Ordinis Die. One of the latest albums on this list, probably the latest one, December 4th of this year, 2020. It does drive me nuts when I see people putting up their end of year lists at the beginning of December, and I'm like, you know, there's like 3 more weeks of releases to come. That's not really fair, you know?
Yeah, they should definitely call it like their top list of 11 months of 2020.
Yeah. As of the time of recording, it's December 23rd that we are doing this. So
dedication to the craft.
Third album from the Italian symphonic death metal masters. It's an album, right, that is 10 individual songs that each is going to have and will eventually have its own music video and an episode, because these episodes will combine in sequence to be a film or a television series, depending upon your outlook, that actually tells the story of a young woman named Eleanor who was persecuted by the Holy Inquisition. So yes, it is a concept album, and man, oh man, do they get that across. But also, it is an grandiose symphonic metal release. You know the type I'm talking about. The type that you're thinking, if I see this live, not only does it need a stage show, but there's pyro, there are fireworks, there are flames, the entire fucking thing needs to be here, while still being fucking death metal, while still being a death metal album. It's elegant, super elegant orchestras in this as well, but not prominently placed, so it never overshadows what is the hard and harsh riffs, the guttural vocals and all those elements. Banger, it's a banger, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So my 14 on my list, which you had not too long ago either, so again, made it into both of our top 20s, is Carrick Angran's Frankensteiner Stratemontanus. You know, you pretty much said everything already on it. I think it's fantastic. It's you know, I don't know how you felt about it. For me, this is easily my favorite of their releases.
Yes.
I find that I clicked with this so much more than, even though I like a lot of their past music, you know, a lot. This was a whole 100% click, you know, all the way through. I like the horror elements to it. You know, I like the fact that they have, I guess, a bit more of a mix I found on it. You know, like there was like songs that I felt, even though it's still in a horror kind of environment, were more grand and, you know, bigger, and just felt like it's not like a rock opera, but, you know, like the sort of thing that could be transformed into a stage show or a short. I'm massively impressed with this band. I think these are one of the most exciting bands out there at the moment, to be honest with you. And this is my favorite release of theirs so far. So here you go.
No arguments here, of course. 14, probably the strangest album on my list for people who know my taste, because we're now going to a folk album, sorry, not even a folk metal album, a folk rock album at best, by the band or artist called King Dude. And it's an album called Full Virgo Moon. Satanic folk is how it is described. And Jesus Christ, did this one knock me for 6. It is amazing, poignant, very immense, emotional, yet really dark style of folk. There are tracks on this that bring me to tears through the sheer brilliance of the melody, but also the lyrical content and the vocals and how he expresses himself. particularly as this man in particular, and I didn't know a lot of this before I'd even heard this album, has taken so many punches over the years through accusations about his behavior to do with Satanism and stuff like that. So a lot of this album is in response to that. And there is so many tracks. One of them is my top 10 tracks of the year called A Satanic Temple. And the lyrics in that about satanic marks not meaning shit to the kids who invented it. A static God is just a monolith. It's amazing. It's beautiful. He creates music that fucking touches your soul. That's why it's there.
Touches your little satanic soul.
Yeah, man. Unbelievable stuff.
Okay, number 13 on the list then. And this is the album Rebirth by Blasphemy by Midnight. One-man band, brutal, blackened, raw, death. No holds barred, no frills, no... it's raw, but like not in an amateurish way. You know, it's professional rawness, like made to be raw rather than raw because I'm not. Yeah, raw because I'm in my mum's basement. You know, it's not that sort of stuff. It's really fucking heavy. It's really fast. It's really dark. It came out way back in January, and I still, I wouldn't say I listen to it daily, but I listen to it a lot. I love it. It's just a pure 100%, 100 miles an hour speed and brutality, just like an absolute blast of blackened death. Like I said, one-man band as well. So there you go. Another talented individual. Yeah,
I remember when I listened to this in the car when I was about 20 minutes away from work near Wembley. And I swear to God, I put it on and I lost it started and it was just, and I swear like the 20 minutes were gone. And I was just like, what happened there?
Yeah, that's what it's like, isn't it? It's like, you just got slapped around a little bit and then like the album's over and you're like, I better listen again just to try and figure out, is there any, like, were there words? Were there guitars?
My 13th, unlucky number 13, goes to a British band, and it is the progressive metal band Cataclysm, who released a third full-length album, Fractures, on the 28th of March this year. Big moment for this band. It feels like a real step up. One that, because of 2020, they probably haven't been able to capitalize as much as they would have loved or wanted to. However, their reputation in the underground scene is massive, and this is the sort of release that helps push them on. From just how talented the band are, from having a great vocalist to having great guitar work that pulls out some killer riffs, to the progressive side where you get from the bass as well, constantly fuzzing away in the background, to great drumming. Great combination together. They're a great fucking band. It's a great album. Yeah.
Cool. Number 12 on my list, Winter Villeth, The Reckoning Dawn, or Winter Villeth. You spoke about it earlier on. I feel similarly about the band. I think they're a huge band for me. I think they're fantastic. Weirdly, I mean, I don't know if time will change this opinion, but as my current state is, this is my favorite release of theirs. Whether that whole, they're obviously there's been some interesting releases around more on the folk side and stuff like that as well. But I guess a lot of people heart kind of back a little bit with them, and will probably have an older album that's a favorite. But this current moment in time, The Reckoning Dawn, is far and away my favorite release of theirs. I absolutely love it. It's 100% click all the way from start to finish. I think they smashed it out of the park. It's brilliant. Cool. Continuing to pioneer themselves.
I'm sticking with the black metal theme, and on our shores in the UK, it's a band Brendan already mentioned, but a lot higher on my list, and it is Sarkoth, and it is the new album Cult of Nature. Now, Brendan already mentioned, we've got a decent relationship with these guys. In fact, I'd go as far to say the two members are people I would consider friends. But that doesn't change the fact that you still have to release good music. I can't lie to myself. I can't tell myself, oh, this is good just because I happen to like the person. There are many people out there I like, and I think do stinky music. It is what it is. Stinky music, yeah.
We swear all the way through it, and then you try and censor yourself with that.
But this is a real step up to me. This is I don't want to use the term grown up because that sounds silly, but this is a much more streamlined, a much more professional sounding band that have refined what they're good at, which is these crushing, heavy black metal sounds with these great post-style atmospheres and melodic elements, to the state where I think they've near perfected it on this album. There are certain tracks in this that are getting constant listens now. I think it's just absolutely brilliant. As a fan of this style of music anyway, it calls to me no matter what. And it's just another sign. You said it when you talked about it. The British underground, man, has some great bands in it. And releases like this prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, like not just Sarkov, but like some of these releases that we talk about, and actually the next one on my list as well, they are too good to be from these small bands. Like, these are albums that I think bands with 10 or 15 years behind them would be proud to release. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we have a huge underground over here, and that means not a lot of bands actually, the negative is it means not a lot of bands break through because they're all in the underground still. But if you listen to the quality of the underground, like, the bar is fucking high, like really, really high. And so that leads into my next one, which is the album Ellipsism by Bull. And not a band I know a lot about, and that's purely, I mean, I know them in the UK scene, but this is their debut album, so there's not a huge amount to know, to be honest. Blackened metal band. I think the word post is used, but I like to drop that wherever I see it. Yeah, because I'm a dick like that. I don't like the term, but there you go. As far as releasing a debut album goes, like, I don't think you could hope for anything more. To be honest with you, I think it's one of the best debuts I've ever heard.
Yep.
I think it's a fantastic album anyway, even if it wasn't a debut. But for a first release, it's like, fuck me, that is amazing. It's heavy, it's melancholic, it's brutal, it's kind of like, well, I think we used the analogy a few times, but like, kind of get that kind of like a curtain sort of being draped over you. You kind of get enveloped up in the darkness of everything that's going along with you, and you can get yourself quite lost in it quite easily. And you don't necessarily come out of it. No, you don't come out of it feeling particularly positive or enthused or like, yes, I'm ready for the day ahead. It's maybe not the sort of thing you want to listen to before you go in for a busy day at work. Maybe when you want to chill out at home and you want to sit there and maybe feel a bit introspective and think about things and feel a bit somber and morose. But you're talking about an underground band, an unsigned band, a debut release, and it's invoking those sorts of thoughts and emotions. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant album.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. Sticking with the British side of it, my number 11 is The Ashes of a Treacherous Silence by 13th Sign, the melodic death thrash band from Nottingham in the UK, released October 2nd, 2020. Fuck me, is this a beast of an album? 14 tracks, about 70 minutes, and you won't notice it. You won't notice it, and this is such a big moment for these guys. And it's one of those where it's clear they've decided to grasp both hands. It's a constant head banger. That is such a unique story being told throughout it as well, while also constantly changing things up so it doesn't ever get boring. No two tracks are the same, while they are still constantly in the core of that melodic and death thrash-based sound. It's got great fucking vocals. There's a real professional quality to this album as well that tells me, like, okay, there's more. This is a bit of a game-changing moment for this band. Yeah.
Cool. Top 10.
Yeah. Here we go.
So number 10 on my list. I have to try and redeem myself a little bit from the Marilyn Mansons and Mushroom Heads and all that, and I've got Necrot with their album Mortal, which came out in August this year. And this, I mean, we'd say this every year, and I'm sure it's the same for you. My 10 are so interchangeable, it's unreal. You know what I mean? Like, there are albums in 10th place that could quite easily have been second, third, fourth, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So these are almost like 10 amazing albums this year. Well, it's been 50 anyway. This shit is heavy as fuck, man. But what I like about these guys, they're from the States, Oakland. I don't really know if I like the term, but they're being deemed as the leaders of a second wave of death metal.
Second wave.
So you kind of get your new wave of traditional heavy metal, or your new wave of this, and these are, I guess, your new wave of death metal.
Okay.
And they, it's only a media term, so it doesn't really mean an awful lot, to be honest with you. But yeah, they're the leaders of the second wave of death metal, and it is really encouraging to see that you can almost kind of pick out the second wave stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it's got all the elements that you would expect from fast, in your face, non-stop, traditional death metal. Heavy. The drums are you know, just a million miles an hour. The riffs are ridiculous, and the vocals are, you know, like sort of shit that, like, I don't know, like you don't want to listen to just before you go to bed in case you have like funny dreams. But they have like little things to them that you can kind of clearly see the differences between why they're classed as a second wave and not just another death metal band. You know, little moments in songs, little I don't know, ideas. I don't know, like a bit of like harmonized dual guitars, or just something that you go like, oh shit, death metal, but that's a little bit different. You know, so yeah, I think these guys are probably, from the new stuff in death metal, probably the band I'm most excited about at the moment. I think they are going to be fucking huge. They're already reasonably big, to be fair, but I think they're going to be absolutely huge, man. This is like your future Slayer material.
Big words, big words.
Yeah.
I continue in my top 10 then, start with number 10, still in England, or, well, UK, for Beggar, and their album Compelled to Repeat, the musical version of The Word Fuming. I'll bet with a shit ton of doomy groove and metal headbangers. This is a beast of an album. It's incredibly heavy, but there's a little bit of a twinkle in their eye. You can kind of tell they understand rhythm, they understand how to make things intense and in your face, but retain that degree of catchiness that makes your ears prick up that little bit of, you know, where you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm paying attention, not just going, ah. And it's their debut as well. Yeah, love it, love it.
So many UK bands, man.
Yeah, man.
So, non-UK band next for me, and a little bit of a diversion from Necrot. And this is with the album A Christmas Carol.
Oh God, it's here.
By Majestica. Yeah, so you know, I guess there was a little debate from on the power metal guys about whether or not a Christmas album should be in a list of albums of the year, but I think, you know, we both kind of agreed at the end that actually, no, it should be. You know, at the end of the day, it is an album of the year. It came out in 2020. Judge it alongside other albums. And again, any other list that came out pre-December will not have picked this up because it came out on the 4th of December. Christmas or not, it is just a phenomenal fucking album. The most uplifting, punchy kind of, you know, like lose yourself in it music you can get. It's proper power metal, fist pumps, and, you know, punch the air, throw your hair around a little bit if you got any. And but I guess the thing I love about it is that what they've done is they've just taken a story and turned it into a masterpiece. It's Christmas or not, it's essentially a concept album. Yeah, that's what it is. It's telling the story of Dickens's A Christmas Carol, but it's just put together beautifully. It is honestly insane. And if you like, if anyone likes it, you can look on Majestica on YouTube, and you'll see that they release these daily videos about how it was all made.
Yeah.
And the love and the care and attention that they put into every note of this album is clear to see, but it really shines through as well. So yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I love it. I can't wait to listen to it in August.
My number 9 is still in Britain, but for an oldie. Guys that have been around for 3 decades. It's My Dying Bride and the new album, The Ghost of Orion. Obviously, it's Doom, and let that wash over you. But it's My Dying Bride back stronger than ever. Melodramatic, it's miserable, it's cold, it's dark, but it's beauty. It's one of those reflective. You talked earlier on about one of those albums you sit at home and you kind of just have that introspective thought process about it more than anything else. It's one of those where My Dying Bride have nothing left to prove, but obviously constantly have to prove when they release a new album because they've been around for 3 fucking decades. But this is proving any doubt is wrong. Transformative, transcendent release. Yeah.
It's a weird thing with music now, isn't it? It's like if you're new, you've got to prove that you can hold it with the big boys. If you're one of the big boys, you've got to prove you can still do what the young generation are doing.
Yeah, match up to them, yeah.
Basically, everybody has to prove themselves all the time.
Basically, yeah.
So next one on my list, number 8, and this one featured way higher on in your top 50, and this is A Brush of Death by Almanac.
Oh yeah.
I love it as an album. You know, you said a lot of the things that I love about it. I love the fact that it is a real mix of genres. I love the fact that, you know, like there's just a shitload to offer a listener, to be honest with you, because of the fact that it's such a mix of genres. But it's not a band dabbling in genres. It is almost at times like, now the band are going to be a power metal band, and now we're going to be symphonic, and now we're going to be just some old school traditional thrash. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, we'll just put a thrash element in. It's like, no, we're going to do a thrash song, like from start to finish.
Yeah.
And they do it all well. You know, if that had been a full symphonic album and they stuck to that style, it probably would have been one of the best symphonic albums of the year, or thrash. And it just seems like the talent on offer is pretty fucking phenomenal to be able to just jump back and forth between the genres that you love to do the songs that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. It's got kind of a unique identity, I think, as an album because of that. I've found this, I've always, even to this day, when people ask me, like, oh, like, when I say people ask me, not many people ask me, but if somebody was to ask me, like, what is it about it you like that much? And I don't think I know, but all I know is that I find it like, it's like a drug. It's addictive to listen to.
Yeah.
I listen to it, I feel good listening to it, and I just fancy listening to it again. And I had that at random moments where I'll just be driving along listening to something on shuffle, and then I'll just fancy a Solid Existence from the Almanac album, and I'll be like, right, I want that, or I fancy a different song on it. And I think you said in your bit, you don't feel like you can't listen to one song because you've got to get the whole picture. You can just jump in and out
Very easily, yeah.
Yeah, and it works. So, you can be in the mood for a good thrash song, and that there'll be a good thrash song on the Almanac album, or there'll be a good rock song or a good symphonic song. So it's an album that just ticks a lot of boxes for me. So yeah, massive fan of that album, massive fan.
All right, well, my number 8 is one you've already mentioned. It's Anal Nakrafs and Dark Mint. And just touched upon what you said as well, one of the things that blew me away about this album more than anything else was I expected, and Beyond the No Illusions, this is still at its core an extreme metal album. However, the variety in show is genuinely surprising. And it is a wonderfully clear to see that Anal Nakrafs were unwilling to just sit back and phone it in again on their 11th album. It's extravagant while still being uncompromisingly savage. It's addictive from beginning to fucking end. And one of the tracks, Feeding the Death Machine, is like one of my favorite of the year. So yeah, Anal Nakrafs.
Yeah. And a hell of an album, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So back to the UK now.
Yep.
And my number 7 on my list is the album Glow by Countless Skies.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I quite like mellow death, melodic death metal, melodic metal, call it what you like. And we don't get an awful lot of it in the UK, to be honest with you. So it's great, first of all, to see a UK mellow death band. Secondly, for it to then be a really fucking good release. It was just like double down on it. So yeah, I was really, really happy. I think for me, it's a bit of a masterpiece, to be honest with you. I'm really, 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 really like this album. It's a debut. Again, blew me away that it's a debut. It's like, this does not sound like a fucking debut band, And I know that doesn't, I know that means that they'll have had singles and EPs, and they've probably been touring for, oh, God knows, could be anything between 3 and 10 years, really. But when you put that much effort into an album, it comes out, and I listen to that, and I would hold it up alongside some real classics of the genre. I think it really holds its own.
Yeah.
And I really, really hope that this would be, one that sees them globally rise up the ranks, because I think it's that good that it should take people around the world should take notice. It's a bit of a shame it's in the mellow death arena, because that never really grows too big anyway.
Yeah, and it's so that's just the terminology, mellow death, that we said earlier on when we were doing this hours ago at the start of this video.
Yeah.
So what does that mean anymore? Mellow death.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's metal with melody in it, but then that's like, well, that's just everything, though, isn't it? other than like Leached. There's everything else.
And other than my next band, who you've already mentioned, and are a lot higher on my list, because for me, this is the bar setter for the extreme side of metal this year. It is Ingested, What Only Gods May Thread. At the time of release, which was August 14th, I thought we'd had an immense year for death extreme metal already. But Ingested came along and just went, fuck that bar, and just wreck the absolute place. There's not really more I can say that you haven't already said. It's just on every level, this album amazed me, from the guttural depths to the riffing highs. Every filthy hook and beat that comes in between. 10 tracks that literally burn so fucking brightly. It's an inferno of extreme from beginning to fucking end. And I love it for that. I love it for that. I think it's the strongest of that style this year.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Number 6 then. And my 6th place is another UK band, Lincolnshire based this time, and this is the album Void by Luna's Call. This album obviously was well received. You know, I think we all know that by now. I don't think there's anyone I've heard or seen anywhere say anything other than wow about this release. And that's great. You know, congratulations to them for that. And I agree completely. It's just what an amazing release it is. And it should hopefully, surely catapult them into, you know, fucking stratosphere, man. Like everybody knows that name now. And that's brilliant. I love it. Progressive. It's more than heavy enough for me. You know what I mean? It's not extreme, but it's pure and intelligent, and it blends enough in with the heaviness to kind of keep things fresh. You know, it has a little bit more of there's moments of melody, there's moments of instrumental sort of, it's not really ethereal, but it's like, I'm trying to think of the term for it, but you know, stuff that you can almost like lose yourself in a little bit, you know. I think I don't know how bands go about doing this shit, man, but I just think that like they managed to piece together like a little bit of perfection. You know, where it just everything works, and every minute, not just every song, but every minute of every song is fresh, and you never feel like you're listening to the same riff again or the same melody again. It's just like a complete blast from start to end. And yeah, a mind-blowing album. It absolutely blew me away. Knew of the band, but did I think they were this good before? No, I didn't. That's the truth of it. This has literally made me hopefully a fan for life, you know. So
cool. All right, number 6. Again, another one you had way earlier on. I think, in fact, that's going to be the case for all of mine towards the end. It is Paul Bearer's Forgotten Days, October 23rd. And you kind of said it already, it is fair to say that you do know what you're getting with a Paul Bearer album. You can kind of confidently expect an epic doom album that's very heavy, but also very light at times in the sense how it might make you feel and so on. This album. It is incredibly doomy, but it's got super somber melodies, thoughtful progression, and unbelievably smart musicianship. It's so what Paul Bearer do, and it's so expected, but it still blew me away, because it was like, holy fuck, this is amazing. Like you're not just doing a Paul Bearer album. You've gone, here's a Paul Bearer album, and it's fucking brilliant. And that's it.
Yeah. It's like the band, if your albums are always that good and then you're still out to better yourself every time, it's like the levels you're going to reach are phenomenal for a doom band. So my number 5 on the list, which is definitely in a very different possession to yours, although again, you know, like we said, all 50 are amazing albums, and this is Drops of Heart by Stargazers by Drops of Heart.
Yeah, it's really high.
Yeah, melodic death metal again, Russian band, like you've said already. I love this record so much. It's unreal. I was so excited about it. I like the fact that it is a melodic death metal band, and this is album, and this is like where we talk about how these things change and can quite easily drift into another genre, because I find that there are parts of this album and songs on this album which is more in the kind of black gaze or post black metal sort of sound. You know, they drift kind of that far out in each direction.
Yeah.
So they kind of get kind of reluctant to say it, but on some songs they get a little bit towards the core kind of end, and then on other songs they go as far as, you know, you could be listening to a moment of Ghost Bath. And that's great. I love that they're that expansive. Knew nothing about them. It's their second release. It came out in July, and it is literally blown the tits off me. I love it. I'm all over it now. I think this band, for me, it's a genre. You know, I love the genre anyway, man. And it's just like, it's the term again, like you just said a few minutes ago, it's wrong, because it's not a melodic death metal album in the vein of what we would think of it with the Scandinavian scene at all.
Of course.
What it is it's a metal album that has melody in it and death. You know, and that's what's happened. And then they've gone, oh, melodic death metal. It's like, well, no, but yeah,
on it for the press.
as much as we're always reluctant to kind of do this, but you know, we're going to have to add some new genres. We have to make some up, haven't we?
Yeah.
To break mellow death down a bit further. But yeah, what a band! Like, you know, I said, sometimes I guess being so far away, the Russian side of things, it maybe doesn't get quite the same press over here as it would if it had been released in Sweden or you know, somewhere where mellow death was maybe more expected from.
True.
But yeah, it's amazing, and they do so much clever stuff with it, man. They've even got Bjorn Strid from Soilwork is on one of the songs, so you know, there's a big name there for you. And if he's getting contacted by some unknown Russian band, and he's like, yeah, I want to be involved here, you know, if you don't believe me, believe Bjorn.
That sounds like it should be on a t-shirt.
Bjorn said, Bjorn wants you.
Number 5 for me. Not going to talk much about this one because Brennan's already brought it up in his number 9 position. And we have talked about this album a lot over this December period. It is Majestica's A Christmas Carol, the retelling of Dickens's A Christmas Carol done by a power metal band at the heights of their current talent. This is number 5. And yeah, you might go, really? 5th best album of the year? Yeah, simply put, it's a great symphonic metal album. But it also, to me, embodies Christmas in a way I've never heard before and puts a big smile on my face. And I have probably over-listened to this album this year. But the best thing for me is that I will not listen to this album at any time except Christmas time. So I will get to walk away from it in a couple of days, in a week's time, put it to the side and say, see you next year. And next year, it'll be fresh again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fourth on my list, and I'm staying in the heavy. So you know, I've grown out of my 2000s bands, and I'm back in modern times.
Yeah.
And this is a release that came out. When did it come out? It came out in June, and this is Rex by Vampire.
Oh God! Wow! Oh, it's been months.
Yeah, it's I remember when I first listened to this album and I wrote the review for it, and I was blown away. And you know, I guess often the test when you get to this point is like, you know, whether your feelings have changed a little bit on it or not, and they hadn't at all. And this, you know, I love it. It's quite old school, I guess, to a degree. Swedish band. It's death metal, but I guess if you're going to have this new wave or second wave of death metal, this would probably be, you know, your European arm that would be leading it.
Yeah.
There are just things like in it that take it from being just a pure death metal album to being something different. You know, like the last song, for example, is just a blast of aggression, and then it transitions. It starts changing as you're listening to it, and they end like suddenly out of nowhere. There's like a really beautiful, quite emotive solo that suddenly comes. You know, after this crushing track that makes you feel like shit. You know, this is the heaviest stuff I've listened to for years. Like, you know, that you have that moment, and then all of a sudden you're in this solo, and then it just fades out into an acoustic melody, and then silence for like 10 seconds, and you're done. And it is just like, you know, it has such an impact. It is brilliant, really, really good. They have been around a little while, but, you know, again, like we have with a fair few bands here, this is them still at their core, but, you know, with enough of a tweak there that you could listen to this and be like, oh, are these a new band? Are these the new wave? Yeah, so phenomenal album. One of my favorites. 4th favorite, actually. There you go.
My 4th favorite is, again, already mentioned, it is Countless Skies Glow from the UK-based Mellow Death band, November 6th. Now, I like Countless Skies, but I wasn't going into this album expecting to ever even consider putting this into top. You know, there was no thoughts on that. And holy fucking shit, how wrong was I? This is an epic. And we're not just talking about the 3-part title track. The entire thing, this surpasses, what's called it? It isn't a debut. You said it was their debut earlier on. I want to correct that. This is the 2nd album.
Oh, right. I thought it was a debut.
No,
there you go. Sorry, I didn't pay attention to their first album at all, so there you go.
There you go. With time and experience, this band has grown. Their talents are immense, and it's just an incredibly huge epic that just at times makes you not just feel like emotional that, but makes you feel so fucking all. Makes you feel so grand. The song Tempest, the opening track, is like one of my favorite tracks of the year. I just keep listening to that over and over again. From the heavy verses to that really stronger, clean singing and that uplifting lift with the guitars. I love this album. Fourth favorite, yeah.
Right, number 3. And then I have to kind of tell a bit of a tale with this one, and this is Avatar's Hunter Gatherer.
Oh yeah.
So, and this is, well, I guess there's an argument to say that, you know, whether the album should be in there or not. But the reality of it is that the impact that Avatar have had on my year, on 2020 for me, has been nothing short of phenomenal. Yeah. And I mean phenomenal. I started the year, January, February, March, probably all the way until around August, actually, not being a fan of Avatar.
Oh, the live stream, Bloodstock thing.
And then we watched the EMFA or EMEA, whatever it was called, European Metal Festival Alliance live stream. And I was interested. I was involved. I was intrigued. I watched their live show and I was like, oh shit, this is not what I thought it was whatsoever at all. And then I would say from that point until now, if I had to honestly answer who is my favorite current band in metal, it would, well, they'd be in the top couple. Like, do you know what I mean? I definitely have to throw their name in the mix. And because of them, in a negative way, they've essentially ruined 2020 for me. Because I went from not being a fan to suddenly adoring them to having to download every album that they've fucking done to date, and then got myself so stuck listening to Avatar for the next 6 months that I've missed out on so many bloody albums. So fuck you, Avatar. But what I didn't miss out on was obviously Hunter Gatherer. I adore it. It's come at the right time for me. I think, you know, I'm a realist. I think if I looked back at this in a couple of years' time, even now, I don't think it's my favorite Avatar album.
Okay, yeah.
But no other one was released in 2020, and I can't ignore the impact that Avatar have had on my year. A silly story, right? Ever since I was a child, as I'm sure you know, any cards or anything like that, I've always done 2 little muckabout seals on the back of the card.
Right, yeah.
MH for Machine Head, and then the M for Metallica.
Yep.
This year, it now also has the A for Avatar on it. It's had that much of an impact on me this year that I've actually included them in my Machine Head and Metallica and Avatar seals now.
That's amazing.
And because of that, I felt like, even though I love this album. I think this album is phenomenal, right? I do. I think it's very mature from, say, some of their other stuff. I think it's got some absolute brilliant songs in it. Colossus, Gun. Gun is beautiful, man. That song, it fucking gets me every time, honestly. Yeah. But it's also got a nice heavy side to it as well, and there's stuff like Silence, you know, and then it's got their stuff, which I actually found I enjoy the most, which is their quirkiness. Yeah. You know, and Child, Justice are 2 of the best examples on that album of it. So overall, as an album, I love it as an Avatar album. But I guess I had to find a way to include Avatar this year as much as anything else, because that impact on me this year is phenomenal. I mean, if you ask me to list my favorite bands now, I'd be like, you know how we always go, well, of all time, historically, it was Metallica. Yeah. And I'm kind of a little bit like that with Machine Head now. Yeah. But if you're talking about current, would it be Avatar? So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing that can happen still. I mean, I love that.
And it's so nice to, like we've spoken about before, to fall in love with a band who haven't got like one single out before. I've got like 7 albums that I've been ripping into, you know. I mean, at the moment, I'm obsessed with Of Feathers and Flesh, just listening to Regret, followed by House of Eternal Hunt, back to Regret, followed by House of Eternal Hunt on repeat for 10, 12 hours straight.
And you've got the joyful thing of you've never seen them live, so...
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully kind of see some live streaming in January. Ages.
Yeah, the 4 things, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, Avatar, we have several interviews with Johannes on the site. I love talking to him. He's a cool dude. Number 3, my 3rd favorite album of the year, released April 29th. So earlier on, we go to France for this, for Genet by Abduction. And it's based on the life of Joan of Arc, particularly one particular part, which was when she enters the besieged city of Orleans in 1429. And this is one of those albums where no matter how vividly you try to describe it to a person, you'll never be able to kind of do it justice. It's black metal, and Abduction's sensational version of that, from being incredibly dark, more intense and detailed. It's just scratching the surface of what it offers. It's ruthless. It's beautiful. It's got a ton of atmosphere as well. Motive melody, while obviously the whole blistering explosion of black metal noise as well. But the grandness of this story being told, it just blew me away. Third favorite.
There you go. So top 2.
Yeah.
And number 2 for me is Drag Me Down by Cabal. And we're off to Denmark for this one. So we get another country in there. And this came out back in April, 3rd of April by Long Branch. And yeah, I guess it's the fact that it's number 2. I mean, you don't really have to say it. Obviously, I was blown away by it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be number 2 on my list.
Yeah.
You know, musically, it is. I guess it's quite doomy at points, but it's got a good blend of stuff on there. You know, I guess you could argue in certain tracks that you listen to, you know, maybe some extreme deathcore. In other tracks, they're slowed down and it's gloomy and doomy and bassy and lots of feedback. In other tracks, it picks it back up and it kind of comes at you more from an in-your-face death metal sort of stuff. But overall, I just found like the whole album is really aggressive. And I liked that a lot about it, that it wasn't maybe trying to make you feel too introspective. It wasn't maybe trying to make you like sit down and think about your life. It was just, I don't know, to maybe designed to just make you feel like a bit less pissed off, you know, like be pissed off with us, you know, take your anger out that way.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, there's a lot to it. I think this band are going to be massive. I really do. You know, I think they're going to be huge, and they've already got. They had quite a lot of talk about them around this album anyway. You know, it did quite well for them from what I gather. It was very well reviewed. Seen it in quite a lot of lists as well. Matt Heafy's a fan, if that helps anyone. He actually featured on one of the tracks in there.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, but like, and that makes you think like, oh, so there's a bit of a clean side to it, but it's a very heavy song. You know, so I think Matt Heafy, for all the Trivium stuff, is actually a very genuine heavy metal fan. So he was keen to be involved.
Love the Heath.
Yeah. So I just, yeah, for me, it's just a special album. I think it's some of the heaviest metal you'll hear, but not necessarily like on the raw side of things. Do you know what I mean? It's more heavy metal than grind or death or anything like that, but it's heavy stuff. Yeah, brilliant album. I love it.
My number 2 has already been mentioned. It is Luna's Call, Void. It's a masterpiece. I would call what this album is, it's insane. It's insane. I can't believe such a level of progressive and technical abilities can be not just condensed into music, but music you want to hear, and music that doesn't drive you nuts because it's just guitar wankery or that stuff. And it's filtered into creating stunning music, and possible amount of shifts, developments, twists and turns. It's sheer brilliant lunacy. This and my number 1 swap places several fucking times, you know, but it ended up at number 2, but it could easily have been number 1. Luna's Call, Void. If this band doesn't become a force over the next couple of years, there's something wrong with the industry. That's what it is.
We're out. We're going pop.
Yeah.
Or country. We go country, not pop. Number 1.
There we go.
If you've listened all the way through, you may have got an earlier spoiler on this.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. And this is by the Polish death metal band Vader, and the album Solitude in Madness, which came out on the 1st of May. The band's 12th album. Interestingly, like their debut came out in 92, but they formed in 1983. And it took them like 9 years of band changes and fighting and everything like that before they finally got an album out. But you know, old boys of the genre, really. Been doing it a long time. I think somebody mentioned once, and I picked up on it, which was they're the biggest death metal band to never play Bloodstock.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, if you're listening to Bloodstock,
got that shout out, isn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't go into this as a fan of. I was not a fan, but I didn't go into this thinking, "Oh yes, new Vader album. I've been waiting for this for 3 years." I went into it thinking, "Oh, let's check this out, man. I know they're a good name. I know they're a consistent band." So I expected a nice, consistent death metal album, and I can tell you, like within days of it, I ordered it on CD, on 2 different variants of vinyl, T-shirts, everything. I was just like lost in the, like I was blown away by it enough that I found myself unwillingly just typing in money to spend on the computer, like as you should do, to support the band and say thank you for what a wonderful fucking release.
Of course.
And it's blown me away, man. It's the album, it's in my #1 spot, not just for its quality, but also I found over the whole of 2020 that it's the album that has been most regularly returned to. That while other albums have songs I listen to all the time, this album I think I can listen to even now end to end, and I wouldn't even be even remotely bored. I think it's got so much on offer. It's got expansive songs. It's heavy as fuck, as you would expect from an old school death metal band. But like we've said many, many times, and I guess for me, these guys are the leading light of it, is this is a showing that after all this time, these old boys who could I do genuinely believe that if Vader just released the prior album part 2, that would have been fine. People would have been okay with that, and they wouldn't have been, oh, fuck Vader, they've lost their way.
Yeah.
But they came out, they didn't experiment, they just added. Do you know what I mean? They didn't go, oh, we're going to change direction or we're going to try something new. They just went, no, just going to bring another element and another bit, and we're going to just grow. And I love the fact that, and this isn't really, I guess, down to the band, it's down to fans. I love the fact that, like, Vader, I guess, have like a bit of a reputation within metal. Like, they don't really get touched. Like, you never really see anybody going, fuck Vader.
True.
Like, do you know what I mean? I think they're well respected. And I maybe didn't quite get enough why until listening to this album and just being like track after track. When you have those moments where you're just like, wow. And the next one, you're like, that's amazing. You ain't going to top that. Yeah. And the next one comes and you're like, holy shit, they topped it. And then the next and the next. And then it ends and you're just like, oh shit, start that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, not far and away, because I do think there are albums like Cabal's, like even like Luna's Call, that all could have easily vied for the #1 spot. But I went back on the album I would happily return to the most. And for me, that was Vader.
That's Brendan's #1. And my #1 is Ellipsism by Bol. This is everything I want from my post-black metal. I want to feel things. I want to be blown away by blinding darkness and bursting fury. But amongst that, I want to be touched. I want to be torn apart and left open and feel sad because of the music, as it makes me think of certain things. But on the same point of that, it can also then lift me up and tell me it's all going to be okay. And through all of that, it's still at its core black metal. For me, the moment I heard it all the way through, first time I went, this is probably going to be my album of the year. And this has happened every single year we've done this list. Whenever I've heard an album and gone, this is probably my album of the year, it very rarely changes, because normally I'll say like, oh, it's contender. But in my head, if I've said this is the album of the year, it's very rarely going to change. And this does everything from, say, the sorrowful, affecting guitar melodies and powerful percussion, scathing vocals. This, several times I've driven home and I've sat in the car. I've got to go upstairs home. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to wait till the song ends. It's got like 2 minutes to go. I'm going to wait. And I've done that so much with this fucking album. And this is their debut. And it's like, are you joking? Now, I know they've been around a little while anyway, but this is their debut full-length record. I just can't fucking believe it. It's a UK band from Sheffield. It's generally like, I want everything from this band now. I want more music. I want to see them live. I want to hug them. I want to have a little cry with them. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I want to say thanks.
Do you think they're the huggy type?
Probably not. Pandemic anyway, so we can't hug. But yeah, it's just such a special album. And it's kind of late in the day, 30th of October. But I'm telling you, from the moment we got this through the promotion material and I first listened to it to review, to the last time I was listening to music, which was a few days ago when I wasn't at home. There's not a day has gone by where I haven't listened to at least one track from this album, at least one, every single day. Sometimes it's the same one. The track Rosalia is my favorite. So that sometimes get more regular rotation, but every single day for the last 2 months, Ball has had it been in my head or been in my ears. And it's I love it so much. It's one of those where I want to tell everybody they should listen to it, but I'm very aware that when you go, oh, it's post-black metal with atmospheric elements, that a lot of people, well, that ain't really my stance. Like, oh, give it a fucking chance. But yeah, that's why that's my number one. Yeah.
There you go.
Whew. There we go.
The marathon.
100 albums, thereabouts, because we doubled up on a lot of them, but 50 each, our top 50 of the year. Hey, if you want to do it, let us know some of yours in the comments, and make sure you check out the other video where we're doing EPs. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?